A mother's trembling hands, a billionaire's quiet witness. One canceled birthday cake that would change everything. When Lena Brooks walked into that bakery, she had no idea a stranger was watching her choose between her son's happiness and keeping the lights on. When Ethan Vale decided to intervene, he didn't know he was about to dismantle every wall he'd built around his grieving heart. This is a story about what happens when two broken families collide in the most unexpected way, and why sometimes the greatest gifts come from people who understand your pain because they've lived it too. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The bell above the door chimed with false cheerfulness as Lena Brooks stepped into Sweet Haven Bakery, her 7-year-old son's hand clasped tightly in hers. The afternoon sun filtered through flour-dusted windows, casting everything in a golden haze that felt cruelly optimistic, given what she was about to do. "Wait here, baby," she said softly to Tyler, guiding him toward the small seating area near the window. "Mama needs to talk to Miss Caroline for just a minute." Tyler's eyes, bright and trusting, looked up at her. "Is the cake ready? Can I see it?" The words hit like a physical blow. Lena forced her lips into something resembling a smile. "Not quite yet, sweetheart. Soon." The lie tasted bitter. She approached the counter where Caroline Martinez, the bakery's owner, was arranging fresh cookies in the display case. Caroline was a kind woman in her 50s, the type who remembered everyone's names and always threw in an extra muffin for the kids, which somehow made this harder. "Lena!" Caroline's face brightened. "Perfect timing. I was just about to call you. The cake is turning out beautifully. The baseball diamond design, the little fondant players, everything just like Tyler described. He's going to lose his mind when he sees it." Lena's throat constricted. She gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles whitening. "Caroline, I need to talk to you about that." Something in her tone made Caroline's smile falter. The older woman set down the tray of cookies and leaned in, lowering her voice. "What's wrong, honey?" "I need to cancel the order." The words came out barely above a whisper. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. "Cancel?" Caroline blinked. "But the party's tomorrow. The cake is already—" "I know." Lena's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, trying again. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I'll pay the deposit. I understand that's policy. I can't—" "The full price? I can't do it right now." Caroline studied her face, and Lena saw the exact moment understanding dawned, followed quickly by pity. That look. She'd seen it so many times over the past 2 years that she'd learned to recognize it instantly, and it never stopped making her feel small. "Lena, we can work something out. I can reduce the price, or you could pay in installments." "No." The word came out sharper than intended. Lena softened it with an apologetic grimace. "Thank you, but no. I can't take charity. I just need to cancel. Please." From the corner of her eye, she could see Tyler swinging his legs from the chair by the window, humming to himself, blissfully unaware that his mother was currently dismantling his birthday dreams piece by piece. Caroline reached across the counter and placed her hand over Lena's. "Honey, it's not charity. You're a good customer, and I know you're good for the money eventually. Times get hard. I understand that." "You don't understand." Lena pulled her hand away, more forcefully than she meant to. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but you don't understand what it's like to choose between a birthday cake and keeping the electricity on, or between that cake and making sure there's gas in the car to get to work next week, or between making your kid happy for one day and making sure he has a roof over his head for the next month." Her voice had risen slightly. She caught herself, glancing back at Tyler. He was still humming, now pressing his face against the window to watch a dog walk by outside. "The deposit is $50, right?" Lena reached into her purse, her hands shaking as she pulled out her wallet. "I have it in cash. Lena, please just take it. Let me have this one shred of dignity." Caroline's eyes glistened. She accepted the bill slowly, as if handling something precious and fragile. "I'm keeping the cake for 2 days. If anything changes—" "It won't." Lena's voice was flat now, emptied of everything. "But thank you." She turned away before Caroline could see her face crumble. Across the bakery, in a corner booth partially hidden by a decorative shelf of artisanal bread, sat a man who had witnessed the entire exchange. Ethan Vale hadn't intended to eavesdrop. He'd stopped at Sweet Haven purely by accident. His car's GPS had routed him off the highway to avoid construction, and he'd been driving for 3 hours straight. The bakery had appeared like an oasis, promising coffee and a brief respite from the monotony of interstate travel. He'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, reviewing quarterly reports on his tablet and nursing an Americano, when the woman had walked in with her son. At first, he'd barely registered them. Just another mother and child, a mundane sight in a small-town bakery. He'd returned his attention to the profit-loss statements for his company's East Coast manufacturing division. But then he'd heard her voice, thin and strained, saying the word cancel. And something had made him look up. Maybe it was the particular quality of pain in that single word. Maybe it was the way her shoulders had drawn up, defensive and ashamed. Maybe it was the universe telling him to pay attention, though Ethan had long since stopped believing in that sort of thing. He watched as she stood at the counter, her back rigid, her head high, even as her hands trembled. She was young, early 30s, he guessed, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and wearing scrubs that suggested she'd come straight from work. A medical facility, perhaps. Nurse or technician. The conversation wasn't loud, but the bakery was small and quiet. He caught enough words to piece together the situation. A birthday cake. Financial constraints. Pride warring with necessity. The boy by the window looked up as his mother turned away from the counter. "Can we see it now?" he called out, his voice pure and eager. Ethan watched the woman close her eyes for a brief second, gathering herself. When she opened them again and crossed to her son, her expression was carefully neutral. "Not today, sweetheart. There's been a little mix-up with the cake. But that's okay. We're going to have a wonderful birthday anyway. Remember I said we could have pizza and watch a movie? Your favorite?" The boy's face fell. "But the baseball cake, with the bases and the players, you said—" "I know what I said." Her voice was gentle but firm. She crouched down to his level, cupping his face in her hands. "And I'm sorry, Tyler. Sometimes things don't work out exactly the way we plan. But that doesn't mean we can't still have fun. Right?" Tyler's lower lip jutted out. For a moment, Ethan thought he might cry. But then the boy seemed to swallow his disappointment, his small face taking on an expression far too mature for his age. "Okay, Mama, pizza's good. That's my big guy." She pulled him into a fierce hug, and over his shoulder, Ethan saw her squeeze her eyes shut again, a single tear escaping down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away. They left moments later, the bell chiming again as they exited. Through the window, Ethan watched them walk to an older sedan parked on the street, a vehicle that had clearly seen better days, with a mismatched rear panel and what looked like a temporary fix on the passenger side mirror. The woman helped her son into the back seat, checked his seatbelt twice, then stood there for a moment with her hand on the car door, her head bowed. Her shoulders shook once, twice. Then she straightened, lifted her chin, and got into the driver's seat. Ethan stared at the space where the car had been long after it had driven away. He knew that particular brand of pain, the specific weight of it. It had been 6 years since his wife Miranda had died, 6 years since a drunk driver had run a red light and transformed him from a husband into a widower in the space of a single heartbeat. 6 years since he'd become a single father to Emma, who had been just 2 years old at the time. He'd been fortunate, obscenely so. He'd had money, resources, a battalion of help, nannies and housekeepers and tutors, the best therapists for both him and Emma. Every material advantage that could possibly be bought. And still, those first years had nearly destroyed him. He remembered the weight of it, the relentless pressure of being solely responsible for another human being while simultaneously trying to process a grief so enormous it felt like drowning. He remembered the impossible choices, though his had never been between bills and birthday cakes. His had been between board meetings and ballet recitals, between closing a deal worth millions and being home for bedtime, between building an empire and building a relationship with his daughter. He'd made mistakes, so many mistakes. Looking at that woman, at her trembling hands and rigid pride, he'd seen himself reflected back. But he'd also seen something different, something harder. She was fighting a battle on multiple fronts, and she was doing it without the safety net that had cushioned his own fall. Caroline approached his table, coffee pot in hand. "Warm up?" "Please." He pushed his cup forward, but his eyes were still on the window. That woman who was just here, with the little boy. Caroline's expression shuddered slightly, protective. What about her? The cake she canceled, what was it for? Her son's birthday. Caroline poured the coffee slowly, precisely. Why? I'd like to pay for it. Caroline's hand stilled. She looked at him sharply. Excuse me? The cake she ordered. I'll pay for it. The full price, plus whatever extra you need to have it delivered to her home tomorrow. I can't just give out customer information. I'm not asking for her address. You can make the delivery. Or I can. Anonymously. Ethan pulled out his wallet, extracting his credit card. How much was the total? Caroline set down the coffee pot with a decisive thunk. Why? Does it matter? In my experience, yes. It usually matters quite a bit. She crossed her arms, studying him with the same protective intensity she'd shown the woman. You're not from around here. I haven't seen you before. So what's your angle? Because if you think buying a cake entitles you to, I think nothing of the sort. Ethan met her gaze steadily. I overheard the conversation. I saw what it cost her to cancel that order, and I have the means to fix it without it costing me anything that matters. That's all. That's all? Caroline repeated, skeptical. I'm a single father myself, Ethan said quietly. My daughter is 8. When she was that boy's age, I missed her birthday. Completely forgot about it, because I was in Tokyo closing a deal. My assistant remembered and sent flowers, but I wasn't there. I was never there, in those days. He paused, surprised at himself. He didn't typically share personal information with strangers, but something about this moment felt important in a way he couldn't quite articulate. She forgave me, he continued. She always forgave me. Kids do that. They love you even when you fail them. But I never forgot the look on her face when I called her the next day and she said, It's okay, Daddy. I know you're busy. He shook his head. That woman in here. She's trying. She's doing everything right, and she still has to make choices like this. So yes, I want to pay for the cake. Not because I think it makes me a good person, but because I can, and she can't, and that boy should have his baseball cake. Silence stretched between them. Caroline's expression shifted, softening slightly. The cake was $250, she said finally. It's elaborate, custom fondant work, hand-painted details. Delivery would be another $30. Ethan handed her his card without hesitation. Add another $200 to the order. Decorations, balloons, whatever else might make a baseball-themed party special. And keep the change for your discretion and your time. Caroline took the card slowly, turning it over in her hands. Her eyes widened slightly as she read the name. Ethan Vale, she murmured. Then her eyes snapped up to his face. Wait, Ethan Vale as in Vale Industries, the tech company? Among other things, yes. She let out a low whistle. Well, that explains the casual $500 cake purchase. Can you do it? The delivery? The discretion? Caroline looked down at the card again, then back at him. Something shifted in her expression, a decision being made. Her name is Lena Brooks, she said. She works at Riverside Medical Center, night shifts mostly. She's been a customer here for 3 years. Never late on a payment until about 8 months ago, when her hours got cut. She's proud and she's struggling, and she loves that little boy more than anything in the world. I don't need to know all that, Ethan said, though he found himself cataloging each detail anyway. Maybe you don't need to, but you should. If you're going to do this, you should know who you're doing it for. Caroline tucked the card into her apron pocket. I can deliver it tomorrow afternoon, around 2. That's when she gets home from her shift. But Mr. Vale? If this is some publicity stunt, or if you show up looking for gratitude or recognition, I won't. You have my word. He paused. Actually, I have a better idea. What time does the boy's birthday party start? There isn't going to be a party. That's why she canceled the cake. There will be now. Ethan pulled out his phone, pulling up his calendar. Tomorrow is Saturday. Does this town have a little league field? Greenwood Park, about 2 miles from here. But I don't see what... Perfect. His mind was already working, assembling pieces. I need you to call Lena Brooks and tell her that there's been a mistake with her cancellation. Tell her the deposit is actually fully refundable, and as an apology for the confusion, you'd like to offer her son a birthday party, free of charge, at the baseball field at Greenwood Park, tomorrow at 3. Caroline's eyebrows shot up. She'll never accept that. She might, if you frame it correctly. Tell her it's a promotional thing. You're starting a community outreach program, and her son's party would be the inaugural event. You'd appreciate the opportunity to use photos for your marketing, if she's comfortable with that. That's actually not a terrible lie, Caroline admitted reluctantly. It's not entirely a lie. You'll take photos, won't you, for your records? I suppose I could. Then it's settled. Ethan stood, pulling out a business card and writing a number on the back. This is my personal cell. Call me after you speak with her. I'll handle the rest of the arrangements. What arrangements? Mr. Vale, what exactly are you planning? A small smile crossed his face, the first genuine expression of pleasure he'd felt in months. A birthday party, he said simply. The kind that boy will remember for the rest of his life. The rest of that evening passed in a blur of phone calls and logistics. Ethan checked into the Riverside Inn, the town's only hotel, and transformed his room into a temporary command center. His assistant, Jennifer, was used to unusual requests, but even she sounded perplexed when he outlined what he needed. Let me make sure I understand, she said over the phone. You want me to arrange a children's birthday party in a town I've never heard of for a child you've never met by tomorrow afternoon? Correct. And this is business-related? Does it need to be? A pause. No, sir. I'll make it happen. Give me the details. He did. Decorations in a baseball theme, a cake from Sweet Haven Bakery, party favors for at least 20 children, jerseys, baseball cards, small gloves, a professional face painter, a balloon artist, and if possible, a pitching machine and someone to supervise it. The budget? Jennifer asked. Whatever it takes to make it perfect. But Jennifer, discretion is important. This isn't a Vale Industries event. It's not a publicity opportunity. It's private. Another pause, longer this time. Understood. I'll coordinate with local vendors and have everything set up by tomorrow at 2:30. Is there anything else? Ethan looked out his hotel window at the quiet main street below. Somewhere in this town, a woman was probably putting her son to bed, maybe reading him a story, maybe promising him that tomorrow would still be special even without the cake he'd been dreaming about. Yes, he said, I want to be there, at the party, but I don't want to be noticed. Can you arrange that? You want to attend anonymously? Sir, you're fairly recognizable. I'll stay in the background. I just want to see his face when he sees the cake. He could hear the smile in Jennifer's voice. You're a good man, Mr. Vale. I'm a man with too much money and not enough ways to use it meaningfully. There's a difference. After he hung up, he sat in the silence of his hotel room and wondered what Miranda would think of all this. She'd always been the generous one, the one who noticed people in need and found ways to help without making them feel small. She'd volunteered at homeless shelters and organized charity drives and never once sought recognition for it. The point, she'd told him once, isn't to be seen doing good. It's just to do good. The doing is enough. He'd lost sight of that in the years since her death. He'd thrown himself into work, into building his company into something even larger than before, because work was concrete and measurable and didn't require him to feel anything he wasn't ready to feel. But watching that woman in the bakery today had cracked something open in his chest, a reminder that there was a world beyond profit margins and market shares, a world where a birthday cake could mean everything. His phone buzzed, a text from Caroline Martinez. She said yes. Suspicious at first, but she said yes. Party at 3 p.m. tomorrow. She's bringing 12 kids. Mr. Vale, I don't know what you're doing, but thank you. Ethan typed back, thank you for trusting me. See you tomorrow. He set down his phone and looked at the photo on his lock screen. Emma, grinning gap-toothed at the camera during her last birthday party. 8 years old now. Growing up so fast he sometimes felt like he was constantly running to catch up. He'd been a better father lately, more present. He'd cut back on travel, delegated more responsibilities, made it to soccer games and parent-teacher conferences. Emma was thriving, but he remembered those early years. The fog of grief, the paralyzing fear that he was ruining this tiny person who depended on him for everything, the desperate bone-deep exhaustion. Lena Brooks was living that now, but with fewer resources and no safety net. Tomorrow he'd give her son a birthday to remember. And maybe, in some small way, it would balance the scales for all the birthdays he'd missed with Emma. All the moments he'd been too buried in grief or work to fully show up. It wasn't charity. It was something else. It was recognition. One struggling parent seeing another and saying, I see you. I know how hard this is. You're not alone. Autumn. Saturday dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring day that felt custom-ordered for outdoor celebrations. Ethan arrived at Greenwood Park at 1 o'clock, 4 hours before the scheduled party. Jennifer had already coordinated with the local vendors, and when he pulled into the parking lot, he found a scene of controlled chaos. A team of decorators was transforming the area around the baseball diamond into something magical. Balloon arches in team colors, red, white, and blue, framed the entrance to the field. Banners reading "Happy Birthday, Tyler" hung from the fence. Picnic tables were being set up along the third base line, covered in themed tablecloths and centerpieces made of baseball bats and gloves, arranged in small wooden crates. A woman in her 50s approached him, clipboard in hand. Mr. Vale? I'm Patricia Chen from Celebrations Unlimited. We spoke with your assistant. This is incredible, Ethan said, taking in the transformation. You did all this in less than 24 hours? Patricia smiled. When someone's willing to pay rush fees and gives us creative freedom, we can work miracles. Let me show you what we've set up. She walked him through the arrangements. A face painting station here with a professional artist who specialized in sports designs. A table for the cake there, positioned to catch the afternoon light. A pitching cage set up near the outfield, staffed by a coach from the local high school baseball team who'd been thrilled to volunteer his time. And this, Patricia said, leading him to a larger table near home plate, is the favor station. Ethan whistled low. The table was loaded with gifts that went far beyond the party favors he'd requested. Each child would leave with a personalized jersey, a new baseball glove, a set of collectible cards, and a gift bag filled with baseball-themed toys and candy. This is too much, he said, though he made no move to scale it back. Your assistant mentioned you wanted it to be memorable, Patricia said diplomatically. I did. This is perfect. Thank you. He spent the next hour helping with final setup details, stringing lights that would glow softly when evening came, positioning speakers for music, testing the pitching machine. The physical work felt good, grounding. He was used to delegating, to managing from a distance, but there was something satisfying about using his hands to build something tangible. At 2:30, Caroline arrived with the cake. Even Ethan, who had paid for it sight unseen, stopped what he was doing to stare. It was a masterpiece, a perfect replica of a baseball diamond, complete with fondant grass and vibrant green, white chocolate bases and tiny figurines of players positioned throughout the field. The birthday message was written in careful script across the outfield, and small fondant baseballs decorated the border. She outdid herself, Caroline said, carefully carrying the cake to its designated table. This is probably the best work I've ever seen her do. It's perfect, Ethan agreed. Caroline turned to look at him, really look at him, for the first time since arriving. You're really not going to take credit for any of this, are you? No? Why not? Most people would want recognition. A thank you at minimum. Ethan shrugged. The boy's happiness is thanks enough, and his mother's relief when she realizes she doesn't have to explain why his birthday isn't what she promised. Caroline studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're either the most genuinely good person I've met in a long time, or you're very good at appearing that way. I'm not sure which. Does it matter if the outcome is the same? I suppose not. She glanced around at the decorated field. This is going to blow that kid's mind. That's the idea. By 3 o'clock, everything was in place. The decorators had departed, leaving only the essential staff, the face painter, the balloon artist, the baseball coach, and a photographer that Jennifer had hired to document the event. Ethan positioned himself at a picnic table far from the main party area, near the parking lot, where he could observe without being obviously present. He dressed down for the occasion, jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Just another parent at a park on a Saturday afternoon. At 3:15, a familiar sedan pulled into the parking lot. Ethan watched as Lena Brooks emerged from the driver's seat, looking around with an expression that cycled rapidly from confusion to disbelief to something close to tears. Tyler exploded from the back seat, his eyes going wide as he took in the decorated baseball field. "Mama!" his voice carried across the park. "Mama, look!" Other cars were arriving now, parents dropping off children, friends of Tyler's from school or the neighborhood. They ran toward the field in a colorful stream of excited energy, their voices rising in a chorus of, "Whoa! And this is so cool! And Tyler, this is for you?" Lena stood frozen by her car, one hand pressed to her mouth. Caroline appeared at her elbow, having emerged from her own vehicle. Ethan was too far away to hear their conversation, but he watched as Caroline spoke softly, gesturing toward the field, then toward the cake table. Lena's face crumpled. She shook her head repeatedly, and Ethan saw her say something that looked like, "I can't accept this." But Caroline kept talking, probably repeating the story about the promotional event, about the photos for marketing, about how Lena would actually be doing them a favor. Tyler ran back to his mother, grabbing her hand. "Mama, can I go, please? They have a pitching machine. And look, there's a cake. The baseball cake you told me about." That broke her. Ethan watched as Lena crouched down to her son's level, pulling him into a tight hug. Her shoulders shook, and Tyler patted her back awkwardly. "Happy tears, Mama?" he asked, his voice carrying on the breeze. "Yes, baby. Happy tears." She let him go, wiping her eyes quickly. Tyler took off running toward the field, where other children were already gathering around the pitching machine, their excited voices creating a joyful cacophony. Lena stood slowly, watching her son disappear into the crowd of kids. Then she turned to Caroline and said something else, something that made Caroline point directly toward Ethan's picnic table. His heart skipped. Had Caroline told her? But no, she was pointing beyond him toward the parking lot exit, probably explaining where the photographer would be positioned or where additional supplies were stored. Lena nodded, then walked slowly toward the field, still looking slightly dazed. Ethan relaxed back into his observation post. The party unfolded like something from a movie. Tyler and his friends took turns at the pitching machine, their laughter ringing out each time someone made contact with the ball. The face painter transformed children into their favorite baseball players, complete with eye black and team logos. The balloon artist crafted elaborate sculptures, bats and balls, and even a balloon baseball diamond that became the centerpiece of an impromptu photo session. Lena moved through it all in a state of visible overwhelm. She helped younger children with the pitching machine, organized a game of catch, and kept checking with Caroline as if expecting someone to tell her there had been a mistake, that none of this was real. But it was real. And it was beautiful. At 4:30, Caroline announced it was time for cake. The children gathered around the table, their faces bright with excitement and sugar from the candy they'd been consuming steadily. Lena stood behind Tyler, her hands on his shoulders, as Caroline brought out the cake. The collective gasp was audible even from Ethan's distant vantage point. "Whoa!" one child breathed. "That's the coolest cake ever," another declared. Tyler's face was pure radiance. "It's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. Mama, look, there's even a tiny scoreboard." Lena was crying again, not even trying to hide it anymore. She kissed the top of her son's head, her expression a complicated mix of joy and confusion and overwhelming gratitude. They sang happy birthday, all the children, the parents who had stayed, the staff. The song carried across the park, and Ethan found himself humming along quietly, a lump forming in his own throat. Tyler made a wish and blew out the candles in one impressive breath. The cheers that followed were thunderous. As they cut the cake and distributed pieces, Ethan pulled out his phone and texted Jennifer. "Mission accomplished. Thank you for making this happen." Her response came quickly. "The photos are beautiful. Sending them to you now." His phone buzzed with incoming images. The photographer had captured everything: Tyler's face when he first saw the field, the joy in his eyes at the pitching machine, the moment he spotted the cake, his mother's tears. But one photo stopped Ethan cold. It was Lena, standing slightly apart from the party, watching her son laugh with his friends. Her expression was unguarded, raw with relief and love and a vulnerability that made Ethan's chest tighten. She was beautiful, not in the polished, cultivated way of the women in his usual social circles, but in a real, tangible way. Beautiful in her exhaustion, in her fierce protectiveness, in the way she'd fought so hard to maintain her dignity, even when it cost her son's happiness. Beautiful because she was trying, despite impossible odds. He saved the photo before he could second-guess the impulse. The party continued until nearly 6 o'clock. Parents arrived to collect their children, each one commenting on what an amazing event it had been. The kids left with their arms full of gifts, their faces painted, their spirits soaring. Tyler hugged his mother approximately every 5 minutes, repeating, "Best birthday ever," like a mantra. As the crowd thinned, Lena approached Caroline one final time. Ethan watched the conversation, wishing he could hear it. Lena was clearly trying to express gratitude, probably still confused about how any of this had happened. Caroline waved away her thanks, said something that made Lena laugh, the first genuine laugh Ethan had seen from her all day. Then Caroline pointed to the remaining cake, 3/4 of it still intact, and several bags of leftover party supplies. "Take it all," he saw Caroline say. "It's yours." Lena protested, but Caroline was insistent. Together they loaded the items into Lena's car, Tyler helping by carrying one balloon at a time and making it a game. Finally, Lena pulled Caroline into a tight hug. They stood there for a long moment. Two women who had known each other as customer and business owner, now connected by something deeper. When they separated, Lena wiped her eyes one more time, then got into her car. Ethan watched the sedan pull out of the parking lot, Tyler waving enthusiastically out the back window at no one in particular, just waving at the whole world because he was that happy. The car disappeared around the corner, and silence descended on Greenwood Park. Ethan stood, stretching muscles that had grown stiff from sitting. The cleanup crew was already arriving, breaking down the decorations with practiced efficiency. Caroline walked over to his table, a knowing smile on her face. "You watched the whole thing," she said. "It wasn't a question." "I did." And? "And it was worth every penny." He paused. "Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for reminding me why I got into this business in the first place." Caroline handed him a small white box. "I saved you a piece of cake. Seemed only fair since you paid for it." Ethan accepted the box, surprised by the gesture. "I didn't do this for cake." "I know, but take it anyway. And Mr. Vale? Whatever your story is, whatever brought you to that bakery yesterday, I'm glad you were there." She walked away before he could respond, leaving him alone in the gathering dusk with a box of birthday cake and a strange feeling in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. That night, in his hotel room, Ethan sat with his laptop open, looking at the photos from the party. He'd intended to return home tomorrow. He had meetings scheduled for Monday, a conference call with Tokyo investors on Tuesday, a board presentation on Wednesday. But something kept him here, in this quiet room, scrolling through images of a child he'd never spoken to and a woman he'd only heard say a handful of words. On impulse, he opened a new document and began typing. Brooks Family Scholarship Programs. Preliminary Proposal. The cursor blinked at him, waiting. What was he doing? He'd given the boy a birthday party. That should be enough. That should satisfy whatever impulse had driven him to intervene in the first place. But his fingers moved across the keyboard anyway, outlining an idea that had been forming in the back of his mind since he'd first heard Lena say she couldn't afford a birthday cake. A scholarship program, not just for Lena, but for others like her. Single parents struggling to balance work, education, and raising children. People who were trying, who wanted to build better lives, but who lacked the resources to make it happen. He could do this. He had the money, the infrastructure through his existing foundation. It would require minimal effort to set up and could make a substantial difference. The program could cover tuition, childcare costs, living expenses. It could provide mentorship, job placement assistance, career counseling. It could be the safety net that people like Lena desperately needed but rarely received. He typed for 2 hours, the proposal taking shape with surprising clarity. When he finally stopped, the document was 12 pages long, comprehensive, detailed, feasible. He sat back, staring at what he'd created. This was insane. He was creating an entire charitable program based on a 5-minute interaction with a stranger. Except she didn't feel like a stranger. She felt like someone he understood, someone whose struggle resonated with his own past in ways he was only beginning to recognize. His phone rang. Emma, video calling from home. He answered immediately, his daughter's face filling the screen. "Hey, sweetheart. Daddy, when are you coming home? Mrs. Chen said you'd be back tomorrow, but I wanted to make sure." Mrs. Chen was the housekeeper/nanny who had been with them for 4 years, a godsend who had helped Ethan navigate single parenthood with patience and grace. "Tomorrow afternoon, yes. I'll be there for dinner." "Good. I miss you." Emma's face grew more serious. You've been gone a lot lately. Guilt flickered. I know, this was important though. Work stuff. What kind of work stuff? He glanced at the laptop, at the photos still open in another window. Actually, I helped organize a birthday party for a little boy. Emma's eyes widened. A birthday party? For work? Sort of. It's complicated. Tell me about it. So he did. He told her about the bakery, about the woman canceling the cake, about the party at the baseball field. He showed her the photos, watching her face light up at the images of Tyler and his friends. That's so cool, Daddy. You made that boy really happy. I hope so. Why'd you do it? It was a child's question, direct and uncomplicated. Adults would have asked different things about his motivations, his intentions, what he hoped to gain. Emma just wanted to know why. Because I could, Ethan said simply. And because his mom reminded me of how hard it was when you were little after Mommy died. She's doing it alone like I was, but without the help I had. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, you should help her more, not just the party. What do you mean? Well, if she's struggling, a party is nice, but it's just one day, right? You could help her with other stuff too, like how Mrs. Chen helps us. From the mouths of babes. You're absolutely right, Ethan said softly. I was actually thinking about that. Would it be okay if Daddy spent a little time working on a project to help people like Tyler's mom? Emma nodded vigorously. Definitely. Mommy always said we should help people when we can. The mention of Miranda sent the familiar ache through his chest, but it was gentler now than it used to be. Time hadn't healed the wound so much as taught him how to live with it. She did say that. Your mom was smart. I know. Emma yawned. I'm glad you did this, Daddy. See you tomorrow? See you tomorrow, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too. After she hung up, Ethan sat in the silence of his hotel room and made a decision. He would implement the scholarship program. But more than that, he would make sure Lena Brooks was its first recipient. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change. And perhaps, though Ethan couldn't have articulated it then, his life was about to change too. Sometimes the universe worked in mysterious ways. Sometimes a wrong turn off the highway led you exactly where you needed to be. Sometimes witnessing a stranger's pain cracked open parts of your heart you'd thought were sealed forever. Sometimes a simple act of kindness was just the beginning of something much larger. Ethan closed his laptop and looked out at the quiet town, lights beginning to twinkle in windows across the dark landscape. Somewhere out there, a little boy was probably going to sleep with a smile on his face, dreams full of baseball and birthday cake. And somewhere out there, a mother was probably lying awake, wondering how any of what happened today was real, maybe allowing herself to hope, just for a moment, that things might somehow get better. Ethan didn't know Lena Brooks, didn't know her story beyond the fragments he'd witnessed, but he was going to change that. Starting tomorrow, he would find a way to reach out, carefully, respectfully, without overwhelming her or making her feel indebted. He would offer the scholarship. He would make it real. And then, well, he'd see what happened next. For the first time in 6 years, Ethan Vale felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. The beginning of something new. The beginning of something that might actually matter. Lena Brooks couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bedroom staring at the ceiling where shadows from the streetlight outside created shifting patterns and tried to make sense of what had happened. The digital clock on her nightstand read 2:47 a.m., which meant she'd been lying here for nearly 4 hours, her mind racing in circles that never quite reached a logical conclusion. The leftover birthday cake sat in her refrigerator. The party favors, those expensive, thoughtful, impossible gifts, were stacked in Tyler's room, where he'd arranged them like treasures before finally collapsing into sleep around 10. He'd talked non-stop until exhaustion claimed him, recounting every detail of the party as if she hadn't been there to witness it herself. And Mama, did you see the pitching machine? And the cake had actual bases, like real bases. And Jordan said it was the best party he'd ever been to, better than when Marcus had that bouncy castle. And she'd listened with a smile plastered on her face, making appropriate sounds of amazement, all while her brain screamed a single question on endless repeat. How? How had Caroline organized something so elaborate in less than 24 hours? How had she afforded professional face painters and balloon artists and a pitching machine and gifts that must have cost hundreds of dollars per child? How had any of this happened? The promotional event explanation didn't hold water. Lena had worked in customer service long enough to recognize a convenient lie when she heard one. Sweet Haven Bakery was a small operation, successful but small. They didn't have the resources for this kind of marketing campaign, and even if they did, why would they choose Tyler? Why her son, specifically? She rolled onto her side, hugging her pillow tighter. Someone had done this. Someone had paid for it. But who? And more importantly, why? The thought made her skin crawl with a complicated mixture of gratitude and unease. She didn't like owing people. Didn't like the feeling of being someone's charity case, their good deed for the day. She'd spent 2 years carefully maintaining her independence, taking nothing she couldn't repay, accepting no help she hadn't explicitly asked for. And yet when she'd seen Tyler's face light up at that baseball field, when she'd watched him laugh with pure, uncomplicated joy for the first time in months, she hadn't been able to bring herself to refuse. Hadn't been able to take that away from him just to preserve her pride. So she'd swallowed her questions and her discomfort, and she'd let her son have his perfect birthday. But now, in the quiet hours before dawn, the questions returned with a vengeance. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it, squinting at the screen. A text from her coworker and closest friend, Maria Rodriguez, who worked the same night shifts at Riverside Medical Center. Still can't believe those party pics. Girl, who's your sugar daddy and does he have a brother? Lena had made the mistake of sharing photos in their work group chat earlier that evening. The response had been immediate and overwhelming, a flood of surprised emojis and questions she couldn't answer. She typed back, "Not funny. I'm as confused as you are." Maria's reply came instantly. "You're up? It's almost 3 a.m. Can't sleep. Brain won't shut off. Come over. I'll make coffee." Lena glanced at her bedroom door. Tyler was sound asleep down the hall, dead to the world after the excitement of his party. And Maria lived in the apartment directly below hers, close enough that she'd hear if Tyler woke up and called for her. "Give me 5 minutes." She pulled on sweatpants and a hoodie, scribbled a quick note for Tyler in case he woke, though he never did. That kid slept like a rock, and padded quietly downstairs. Maria opened her door before Lena could knock, already holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "I knew you'd come," she said, ushering Lena inside. "You have that look, the overthinking look." "I don't have a look." "You absolutely have a look. It's the same one you get when you're trying to figure out how to stretch groceries for 2 weeks, or deciding which bill can wait another month." Maria settled onto her couch, patting the cushion beside her. "Talk to me." Lena sank into the offered seat, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "Something's not right about yesterday." "Not right how? Your kid had the party of a lifetime. That seems pretty right to me." "That's exactly the problem. It was too much. Way too much." Lena set down her coffee and started ticking points off on her fingers. Professional decorations, a pitching machine, face painters, balloon artists, personalized jerseys for 12 kids, brand new baseball gloves. And that cake, Maria, that cake probably cost $200 minimum. So Caroline went all out for her promotional thing. There is no promotional thing. I've been a customer there for 3 years. Caroline runs a small bakery. She doesn't have that kind of budget for marketing. And even if she did, why me? Why Tyler? We're nobody special. Maria was quiet for a moment, studying Lena's face. "You think someone else paid for it?" "I know someone else paid for it. I just don't know who or why." "Does it matter?" The question hung in the air between them. "Yes," Lena said finally. "It matters because people don't just give away thousands of dollars to strangers without wanting something in return. And I don't know what that something is, which means I can't prepare for it. Maybe there is no something. Maybe somebody just wanted to do something nice. People don't work like that. Some people do." Maria reached over and squeezed Lena's hand. "I know you've been burned before. I know Ty's dad left you with nothing but debt and broken promises. I know that caseworker at social services made you feel like dirt when you asked for help. But Lena, not everyone is trying to hurt you or take advantage. Sometimes good things just happen." Lena wanted to believe that. She really did. But 2 years of struggling alone had taught her that if something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. I'm going to talk to Caroline tomorrow, she said. Really talk to her. Get the truth. And if the truth is exactly what she told you, that it was a promotional event, then I'll know she's lying and I'll figure out what to do from there. Maria sighed. You're impossible. I'm careful. There's a difference. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking their coffee, the quiet broken only by the occasional car passing outside. He was really happy, though, Maria said softly. Tyler, I've never seen him smile like that in the photos. Lena felt her chest tighten. I know. Whatever the reason, whoever did it, they gave your kid a memory he'll carry forever. That's not nothing. It's not nothing, Lena agreed quietly. It's everything, which is exactly why I need to understand it. She stayed another hour until the sky outside started to lighten with the approaching dawn. Then she climbed back upstairs to her apartment, checked on Tyler, still sleeping peacefully, one arm flung over his new baseball glove, and tried to catch a few hours of rest before the questions started circling again. Sunday morning arrived with Tyler's excited voice calling from his room. Mama, can I have cake for breakfast? Lena emerged from her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Nice try, buddy. How about pancakes? With the leftover cake after? We'll see. She made pancakes while Tyler chattered away, reliving the party for what felt like the 100th time. Every detail still delighted him. The way the balloon artist had made him a baseball bat that actually looked real, how he'd hit 3 balls in a row at the pitching machine, the fact that Jordan Evans, the coolest kid in his class, had said Tyler's party was epic. Watching him, Lena felt her resolve waver. Did it really matter who had paid for it? Wasn't the joy on her son's face payment enough for whatever cosmic debt she might now owe? But no, she needed to know. It was the not knowing that made her skin itch with anxiety. After breakfast, while Tyler played with his new toys in his room, Lena pulled out her phone and called Sweet Haven Bakery. Caroline answered on the 3rd ring. Sweet Haven, this is Caroline. Caroline, hi, it's Lena Brooks. Lena, how's Tyler? Still on cloud 9? He hasn't stopped talking about it. Caroline, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. A pause. Okay. Who paid for that party? Silence stretched between them, long enough that Lena thought the call might have dropped. Caroline? I'm here. I'm just thinking about how to answer that. The truth would be good. She heard Caroline sigh. I can't give you a name. Can't or won't? Both. I promise discretion. Lena's stomach dropped. So someone did pay for it. It wasn't a promotional thing. It was complicated. Lena, please don't be angry. The person who helped wanted to remain anonymous. They saw what you were going through on Friday, and they wanted to do something kind. That's all. Someone was there? At the bakery? When I canceled the order? Yes. And they just decided to throw my son a $5,000 birthday party out of the goodness of their heart? It wasn't 5,000. Caroline stopped. That's not the point. Yes, essentially. They wanted to help. Why? Lena's voice cracked. Why me? Why Tyler? I don't understand. Because they could. Because they saw someone struggling and had the means to make it better. Lena, I know this is uncomfortable for you. I know you don't like accepting help. But please, try to see it for what it was. A gift. No strings, no expectations. Just kindness. Lena pressed her fingers against her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. I don't even know who to thank. You don't need to thank anyone. That's the whole point. They talked for a few more minutes, but Caroline remained firm in her refusal to identify the mysterious benefactor. Finally, Lena thanked her for at least being honest about the origins of the party and hung up. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at nothing, trying to process. A stranger. Someone who had been at the bakery, who had overheard her canceling the cake, who had enough money to casually fund an elaborate children's party. Who could that be? She tried to remember Friday afternoon, tried to picture the other customers in the bakery. There had been an older couple looking at pastries, a teenager buying cookies, and someone else? She couldn't quite pull the memory into focus. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, she didn't answer those, too many bill collectors, but something made her pick up. Hello? Ms. Brooks, this is Jennifer Chen calling from the Vail Foundation. Lena's mind went blank. I'm sorry, the what? The Vail Foundation. We're a charitable organization focused on supporting single parents pursuing higher education. Your name was submitted to our scholarship program, and I'm calling to discuss your eligibility. I didn't apply for any scholarship. It was a third-party nomination, very common in our program. We work with community partners who identify candidates who might benefit from our assistance. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Lena glanced toward Tyler's room, where she could hear him making sound effects for his toy baseball players. Sure, I guess, but I don't understand. I'll explain everything. First, let me tell you about the program. The Vail Foundation was established 6 years ago by Ethan Vail, CEO of Vail Industries. Our primary mission is to support single parents who are working to improve their circumstances through education but face financial barriers. We provide full tuition coverage, childcare assistance, and a living stipend to qualifying recipients. That sounds too good to be true. Jennifer laughed warmly. I hear that a lot, but I assure you, it's very real. We've helped over 300 families in the past 5 years. Now, according to the information we received, you're currently working as a medical assistant at Riverside Medical Center, but would like to return to school to complete your nursing degree. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. But how do you know that? Our community partner provided that background. Brooks, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you this week to discuss the program in detail and begin the application process. Would that be possible? Lena's head was spinning. This week? I work nights? We can work around your schedule. What time would be convenient? It felt like being swept up in a current. Lena grasped for solid ground. Can I ask who nominated me? Your community partner? I'm afraid that information is confidential. Many of our nominators prefer to remain anonymous. Of course they did. I need to think about this, Lena said. Absolutely, take your time. But Ms. Brooks, I will say this. Opportunities like this don't come along often. Our scholarship could change your life and your son's life. It's worth at least having a conversation about it, don't you think? She wasn't wrong. Tuesday, Lena heard herself say. I could meet Tuesday afternoon, around 2. Perfect. I'll send you the details via email. What address should I use? Lena provided it, still feeling like she was watching herself from outside her body. After they hung up, she sat very still, her mind racing. The party yesterday. This scholarship today. Both mysterious, both too generous, both appearing out of nowhere right when she needed them most. Connected? They had to be. She pulled up her laptop and searched Vail Foundation. The website was professional and comprehensive. Photos of smiling families, statistics about program outcomes, testimonials from scholarship recipients. And there, on the About Us page, a photo of the founder, Ethan Vail. Early 30s, dark hair, serious eyes. Handsome in that polished, wealthy way. The brief bio said he'd taken over his family's tech company at 25, expanded it into a multi-billion-dollar empire, and established the foundation after the death of his wife. A widower. A single father. Lena stared at his photo, trying to figure out if she recognized him. Had he been at the bakery? Could this sophisticated billionaire have been the stranger who'd overheard her? It seemed impossible. What would someone like Ethan Vail be doing in a small-town bakery? But the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. She spent the rest of Sunday researching, reading every article she could find about Ethan Vail and his foundation. Most of the coverage was business-focused, mergers and acquisitions, stock prices, technological innovations. But scattered throughout were mentions of his charitable work, always described in vague terms. Private donations and anonymous contributions. A man who apparently made a habit of helping people without taking credit. By the time she picked up Tyler from Maria's apartment that evening, he'd gone down to play with Maria's nephew. Lena had made a decision. She would go to the meeting on Tuesday. She would listen to what the Vail Foundation had to offer, but she would also ask direct questions, and she would demand honest answers. If Ethan Vail was behind this, behind the party, behind the scholarship, she needed to know why. And more importantly, she needed to know what he expected in return. Because in her experience, nobody gave something for nothing. Tuesday afternoon arrived with unseasonable warmth. Lena dropped Tyler at Maria's apartment, changed from her scrubs into the nicest outfit she owned. a simple black dress and cardigan that she usually reserved for job interviews, and drove to the address Jennifer had provided. The Vail Foundation occupied a modern office building on the edge of town, all glass and steel and understated elegance. Lena felt underdressed the moment she walked through the doors. Jennifer Chen met her in the lobby, a polished woman in her 40s with a warm smile and efficient manner. "Miss Brooks, so glad you could make it. Please, come up to my office." They took an elevator to the third floor, making small talk about the weather and Tyler's birthday. How did Jennifer know about that? The office Jennifer led her to was tastefully decorated with large windows overlooking a small park. "Coffee? Water?" Jennifer offered. "Water would be great, thank you." Once they were settled, Jennifer pulled out a folder. "Let me walk you through how our program works. The scholarship covers full tuition and fees for accredited degree programs. In your case, that would be the nursing program at Riverside Community College, correct?" "That's the one I was looking at, yes, before my circumstances changed." "I understand. In addition to tuition, we provide a monthly stipend of $2,000 to help with living expenses, and we cover childcare costs up to $1,000 per month. The scholarship is renewable each semester as long as you maintain a 2.5 GPA and make steady progress toward your degree." Lena did the math in her head. That was enough to actually live on while going to school. Enough to not have to choose between textbooks and groceries, between study time and overtime shifts. It was enough to change everything. "What's the catch?" she asked bluntly. Jennifer didn't seem offended. "No catch. We ask that you maintain your academic standing, participate in quarterly check-ins with a program mentor, and consider volunteering as a mentor yourself once you complete your degree. That's it." "And you help 300 families? Just out of generosity?" Mr. Vail believes that investing in single parents is investing in the future. When you succeed, Tyler succeeds. When Tyler succeeds, your whole community benefits. It's not just generosity, it's smart social investment. "And Mr. Vail is based where? New York? San Francisco?" "He splits his time. The foundation headquarters is here because he wanted to focus our efforts on communities that often get overlooked by larger charitable organizations. Here, in this town." Does he ever meet with the scholarship recipients?" Something flickered in Jennifer's expression. "Sometimes." "Why do you ask?" Lena chose her words carefully. "I'm trying to understand why I was nominated. I didn't apply. Someone put my name forward, and I'd like to know who and why. As I mentioned on the phone, that information is confidential." "Was it Mr. Vail himself?" Jennifer held her gaze steadily. "I can't answer that question, Ms. Brooks." Which was an answer in itself. Lena sat back in her chair, processing. "This is because of the party, isn't it? The birthday party on Saturday. Mr. Vail paid for that." "I really can't—" "Please," Lena leaned forward. "Please just be honest with me. I'm not ungrateful, but I need to understand what's happening. My son had a birthday party that appeared out of nowhere. Now I'm being offered a scholarship that could change our lives. Both connected to the Vail Foundation, both anonymous gifts. I'm not stupid." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the folder in front of her and folded her hands on top of it. "Off the record?" she said. "Off the record. Mr. Vail occasionally identifies candidates personally for our scholarship program. When he encounters someone who exemplifies the kind of determination and resilience we're looking to support, he'll recommend them. That's all I can say." "He was there at the bakery on Friday." Jennifer didn't confirm or deny. She simply said, "Mr. Vail takes his foundation work very seriously. He believes in helping people who are helping themselves." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "I don't want to be someone's charity case." "You're not. You're a candidate for an academic scholarship based on merit and need. What you do with it, whether you accept it, how hard you work, what you accomplish, that's entirely up to you. Mr. Vail doesn't want gratitude or recognition. He just wants to see you succeed." "Why?" The word came out barely above a whisper. "Why does he care?" Jennifer's expression softened. Because he understands what you're going through. Because he knows how hard it is to do this alone. And because he has the resources to help, so he does. It's that simple." It wasn't simple. Nothing about this was simple. But looking at the scholarship information laid out in front of her, at the chance to finish her degree and build a real career to give Tyler the stability they both desperately needed, how could she say no? "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Of course. Take a week, 2 weeks, whatever you need. The offer stands." Jennifer pushed the folder across the desk. "Take this with you, read through everything, and Ms. Brooks, for what it's worth, I hope you accept. I've been working with Mr. Vale for 5 years, and I've never seen him personally nominate someone after a single encounter. Whatever he saw in you, it made an impression." Lena took the folder with shaking hands. She left the office in a daze, drove home on autopilot, and sat in her car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before going inside. Tyler was eating cookies at Maria's kitchen table when she came to collect him, chocolate smeared across his face. "Mama, Maria made snickerdoodles." "I see that." Lena met Maria's eyes over Tyler's head, and her friend raised her eyebrows in a silent question. "Thanks for watching him." "Anytime. You okay?" "Yeah, I think so. I'll tell you about it later." Back in their own apartment, Lena made dinner while Tyler did homework at the kitchen table. Spaghetti and meatballs, his favorite. She watched him work through his math problems, his tongue poking out in concentration, and thought about futures. With the scholarship, she could finish her nursing degree in 2 years. She could get a job at the hospital, making 3 times what she made now. They could move to a bigger apartment, maybe even save for a house eventually. Tyler could do Little League, could have birthday parties every year without her having to cancel them, could go to college someday without drowning in debt like she had. The scholarship was a door opening, maybe the only door that would ever open for them. But walking through it meant accepting help from a stranger. It meant owing something to someone she'd never met, whose motivation she didn't fully understand. After dinner, after Tyler's bath, after story time and tucking him in, Lena pulled out the folder Jennifer had given her and read every page. The application was straightforward: transcripts from her previous college coursework, letters of recommendation, an essay about her goals and why she deserved the scholarship. She could do this. She could write a compelling essay, could get her old professors to write recommendations, could submit her transcripts. The question wasn't whether she was qualified. The question was whether she could accept it. She stayed up until nearly midnight, writing and rewriting the essay, trying to capture on paper what her life had been like for the past 2 years, what she wanted for Tyler's future, why she'd chosen nursing in the first place. By the time she finally closed her laptop, she'd made her decision. She would apply. She would accept the scholarship if it was offered. And she would work harder than she'd ever worked before to prove that she deserved it, not because someone felt sorry for her, but because she was capable and determined and refused to let her son grow up watching his mother give up on her dreams. If Ethan Vale wanted to invest in her future, she would make damn sure it was an investment that paid off. Wednesday morning, she submitted her application. Thursday afternoon, Jennifer called to say she'd been accepted. "That was fast," Lena said, still processing. "Your essay was compelling, and your previous academic record is strong. Mr. Vale wanted me to tell you that he's confident you'll make the most of this opportunity." Mr. Vale, the phantom benefactor still operating from the shadows. "Tell him thank you," Lena said, "and tell him I won't let him down. You can tell him yourself if you'd like. He's requested a meeting with all new scholarship recipients, next Monday at 4, if you're available." Lena's heart jumped. "He wants to meet me?" "It's optional, but he likes to introduce himself personally when possible. No pressure, though. Some recipients prefer to keep the relationship with the foundation purely administrative." "No, I'll be there. I'd like to meet him." She needed to meet him, needed to look in the eyes of the man who had chosen to change her life and understand why. "Perfect. I'll send you the details." After they hung up, Lena stood in her kitchen and allowed herself one moment of pure, unfiltered emotion. Relief, gratitude, hope, terror, all of it washing over her at once. She picked up her phone and texted Maria, "I got it. The scholarship. I'm going back to school." Maria's response was immediate. "Ah, that's amazing. Celebratory wine tonight after you put Tyler to bed?" "Definitely." She told Tyler that night over dinner, watching his face light up with excitement, even though he didn't fully understand what it meant. "Does this mean you'll be a nurse? Like the ones at the doctor's office?" "Exactly like that. It's going to take a couple of years, but yes." "That's so cool, Mama. Will you wear scrubs with pockets?" She laughed, the tension in her chest easing slightly. Probably even better scrubs than I wear now. Can I tell everyone at school? You can tell whoever you want, buddy. He did exactly that. By Friday afternoon, Lena's phone was buzzing with congratulatory texts from other parents in Tyler's class, most of whom she barely knew. The attention made her uncomfortable, but it also felt good. Like maybe, for once, she was being seen for something other than her struggles. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Monday arrived too quickly. Lena dropped Tyler at school, went home to change into her interview outfit again, and drove to the Vail Foundation offices with her stomach in knots. Jennifer met her in the lobby again, but this time they weren't going to her office. Mr. Vail is in the conference room, she explained as they walked down a hallway. He's looking forward to meeting you. Lena's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, willing herself to stay calm. Jennifer opened a door and gestured her inside. The conference room was smaller than expected, with a long table and windows overlooking that same small park. And sitting at the head of the table, looking exactly like his photo, but somehow more real, was Ethan Vail. He stood as she entered, extending his hand. Ms. Brooks, it's a pleasure to finally meet you properly. His handshake was firm, professional. His eyes were kind. And Lena knew, with absolute certainty, that this was the man who had been in the bakery. The stranger who had witnessed her lowest moment and decided to do something about it. Mr. Vail, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Thank you for this opportunity. Please call me Ethan, and you're very welcome. But the thanks should really go to you for having the courage to accept help and for being willing to work for a better future. They sat, and Jennifer discreetly excused herself, closing the door behind her. Lena and Ethan regarded each other across the table. You were there, Lena said. Not a question. I was, Ethan confirmed. At the bakery on Friday. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard enough to understand your situation, and you decided to throw my son a birthday party. I decided to help, yes. The party seemed like a good place to start. Why? The question that had been burning in her mind for days. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Why would you do this? Ethan was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. 6 years ago, my wife died, he said finally. I became a single father overnight, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was drowning in grief and terror, and the only thing that saved me was having resources, money, help, support systems. Watching you at that bakery, I saw myself, but I also saw what my life would have looked like without those resources, and I thought, I can't fix everything, but I can fix this. For you. For Tyler. The honesty in his voice made Lena's throat tight. I'm not looking for gratitude, Ethan continued, and I'm not expecting anything from you. I just want to see you succeed, that's all. That's a lot, Lena said softly. The party was one thing, but this scholarship, it's everything. It's my whole future. Then make it count. Work hard, graduate, build the life you want for yourself and your son. That's all I ask. They talked for another hour about the scholarship program, about her nursing goals, about the challenges of single parenthood. Ethan shared stories about his daughter Emma, about the mistakes he'd made and the lessons he'd learned. Lena found herself relaxing, found that beneath the billionaire exterior was someone who genuinely understood the weight she'd been carrying. When their meeting finally ended, Ethan walked her to the elevator. One more thing, he said as she was about to step inside. The foundation is expanding our support programs. We're going to be offering this scholarship nationally, helping hundreds more families like yours. And I'd like you to be involved, if you're interested. Once you graduate, once you're established in your career, I'd love for you to serve as a mentor, maybe help us refine our program based on your experience. Lena blinked. You want my input? You're living this reality. Your perspective is invaluable. Think about it. No rush. She stepped into the elevator, turned to face him. Ethan? Yes? Thank you. Not just for the scholarship, for seeing me, for seeing that I was trying. His smile was genuine and warm. Keep trying, Lena. You're going to do great things. The elevator doors closed and Lena sagged against the wall, emotions overwhelming her. For the first time in 2 years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The elevator ride down felt longer than the one going up. Lena stared at her reflection in the polished steel doors, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. Same dark hair, same tired eyes, but something had shifted, something fundamental. Hope. That's what it was. Actual, tangible hope for a future that didn't involve choosing between electricity and birthday cakes. She drove home in a daze, her mind replaying the conversation with Ethan. The way he'd looked at her, not with pity, but with understanding. The way he'd shared his own struggles without making them sound trivial despite his wealth. The genuine warmth in his voice when he'd said she was going to do great things. No one had said anything like that to her in years. By the time she pulled into her apartment complex, she'd made another decision. She would accept his offer to be involved with the foundation's expansion. Not now, not until she'd proven herself, but eventually, she would pay forward what he was giving her. Maria was waiting on her doorstep, practically vibrating with curiosity. "Well?" she demanded before Lena had even gotten out of the car. "How did it go?" "He's real. The scholarship is real. All of it." "And?" Lena locked her car and walked toward her friend. "And he's not what I expected." They went inside, and over coffee that had become their ritual, Lena told Maria everything. About Ethan's wife, about his daughter, about how he'd simply wanted to help because he understood. "So he's not a creepy rich guy with weird motives," Maria summarized. "No, he's just a dad. A dad with a lot of money who decided to use it for something good." "And you trust him?" Lena considered the question carefully. "I think I do. Which terrifies me, honestly. But yeah, I think I do." Maria raised her coffee mug. "To trust. And to new beginnings." They clinked mugs, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena felt the knot of constant anxiety in her chest loosen just slightly. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Lena enrolled in fall semester classes at Riverside Community College, met with academic advisors, and purchased textbooks with money from the scholarship stipend. She reduced her hours at the hospital to part-time night shifts, which meant less income but more time for studying. The foundation's living stipend would cover the difference, and then some. Tyler adjusted to his mother's new schedule with the resilience of childhood. He was proud that his mama was going to be a nurse, told everyone who would listen, and didn't seem to mind that she was sometimes distracted with homework. But as the semester start date approached, Lena found herself growing increasingly anxious. Not about the coursework. She'd always been a good student. The anxiety was something else, something harder to name. It was the weight of expectation, the pressure of knowing that someone believed in her enough to invest tens of thousands of dollars in her future. The fear that she would somehow fail and prove that she wasn't worth the investment after all. She was sitting at her kitchen table one evening in late August, surrounded by syllabi and course materials, when her phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. "Hello? Lena? It's Ethan." "Ethan Vale. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." Her heart did an unexpected skip. They'd exchanged phone numbers at their meeting, but she hadn't expected him to actually use his. In her mind, their relationship would be maintained through Jennifer, professional and distant. "No, not at all. Tyler's at a friend's house. I'm just reviewing class materials." "How are you feeling about the semester starting?" "Honestly? Terrified." He laughed, the sound warm and reassuring. "That's completely normal. I wanted to call because I've been thinking about what I said at our meeting about having you involved with the foundation's expansion. I remember, but I thought that was something for after I graduate. It is, mostly. But I had an idea I wanted to run by you. The foundation is hosting a fundraising gala in October. It's our biggest event of the year, and it's where we announce new initiatives and share success stories from our scholarship recipients. I was wondering if you'd be willing to speak. Just a few minutes about your experience, about what the scholarship means to you." Lena's stomach dropped. "Speak? In front of people?" "In front of about 300 people, yes. I know public speaking isn't everyone's comfort zone, but your story is powerful, Lena. And hearing directly from someone who's benefiting from the program, it makes a difference. It helps people understand why this work matters." 300 people. Wealthy donors, probably, and expensive clothes, judging whether she was a worthy investment. "I don't know if I'm the right person for that," she said carefully. "You're exactly the right person. You're articulate, genuine, and you're living proof that our programs work." He paused. "I wouldn't ask if I didn't think you could do it, and I'll help you prepare. We can work on the speech together, do practice runs, whatever you need. The thought of Ethan Vale helping her write a speech was surreal enough to make her laugh. You'd do that? Of course. This is important to me, Lena. The foundation, the work we do, it's not just a tax write-off or a vanity project. It's personal. And having someone like you share their story, it reminds people why we're doing this. She heard something in his voice, an intensity that went beyond professional interest. This mattered to him. Really mattered. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll do it. Really? Really, but you're holding me to that offer of help. I've never spoken in front of more than 20 people in my life, and that was a disaster. We'll make sure this isn't a disaster. Thank you, Lena. This means a lot. After they hung up, she sat staring at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. The next morning, she received an email from Jennifer with preliminary details about the gala. Black tie event at the Riverside Grand Hotel. Cocktail hour at 6, dinner at 7, speeches at 8:30. And there, in the program outline, her name, Lena Brooks, scholarship recipient testimonial. She forwarded the email to Maria with a single line. What have I gotten myself into? Maria's response, something amazing. Also, we're going dress shopping. You can't wear scrubs to a gala. Which was how Lena found herself the following Saturday in a boutique she would never normally have entered, trying on dresses that cost more than her monthly rent used to be. This is insane, she muttered, examining a price tag. $400 for a dress I'll wear once? The foundation is covering it, Maria reminded her, leafing through the rack. Jennifer said so in the email. They have a budget for scholarship recipients who speak at events. That somehow makes it worse. Like I'm being dressed up like a doll. Or like you're being given the tools you need to succeed in an environment you're not used to. There's a difference. Maria pulled out a deep blue dress, holding it up critically. Try this one. The dress was beautiful, simple but elegant, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. Lena took it into the dressing room, half expecting it to look ridiculous on her. It didn't. It looked perfect. She stepped out to show Maria, who let out a low whistle. That's the one. You look incredible. Lena turned to examine herself in the three-way mirror. The woman looking back at her seemed sophisticated, confident, not at all like someone who regularly worried about overdraft fees. I don't know, she said uncertainly. I do. That's the dress. Now we need shoes. By the time they left the boutique 2 hours later, Lena had a complete outfit. The blue dress, black heels that were surprisingly comfortable, and simple jewelry that Maria insisted was essential. I feel like Cinderella, Lena said as they loaded the bags into her car. Good. You deserve a Cinderella moment. Just don't lose your shoe at midnight. Despite her anxiety about the gala, Lena found herself looking forward to working with Ethan on her speech. They scheduled their first meeting for the following Tuesday at a coffee shop near campus. Neutral territory, as Ethan called it, somewhere that wouldn't feel intimidating. He was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee and a laptop open in front of him. I took the liberty of ordering for you, he said as she sat down. Caramel latte, right? Jennifer mentioned it was your usual. You have my coffee order in a file somewhere? Jennifer is very thorough, he smiled. How was your first week of classes? Overwhelming, but good. I forgot how much I actually enjoy learning when I'm not working full-time and trying to keep a 7-year-old alive simultaneously. How is Tyler adjusting to your new schedule? He's good. Maria helps a lot. She picks him up from school on the days I have late classes, and he thinks it's cool that his mom is in college. That's great. My daughter Emma is similar. She likes telling her friends that her dad runs a company, even though she has no idea what that actually means. They spent a few minutes talking about their kids, comparing notes on the challenges of single parenthood. Lena was struck again by how normal Ethan seemed. Yes, he wore expensive clothes and probably had never worried about money a day in his life. But when he talked about Emma, he sounded exactly like every other parent she knew. Proud, worried, doing his best. So, Ethan said eventually, pulling up a document on his laptop. Let's talk about your speech. The goal is to give people a window into your experience, why you needed the scholarship, what it's enabling you to do, what it means for your future. We're looking at about 5 minutes, which is roughly 700 to 800 words. That's specific. I've given a lot of speeches. You learn to time things. He turned the laptop toward her. I put together a rough outline based on what you shared at our first meeting. This is just a starting point. Feel free to change anything. Lena read through the outline. It was good, hitting all the major points of her story without being maudlin or manipulative. But it also felt impersonal, like it could be anyone's story. This is great, she said carefully, but it feels a little generic. That's why we're working on it together. I gave you the structure. You give it the heart. He pulled out a notebook and pen, sliding them across the table to her. Tell me about the moment you decided to go back to school. Not the practical decision, the emotional one. What made you want this? Lena stared at the blank page. I'm not sure what you mean. When did you first think, I want to be a nurse? What was happening in your life? The memory came back with unexpected clarity. Tyler was 4. He had pneumonia and we were in the emergency room. I was terrified. His fever was so high and he was struggling to breathe. The nurse who took care of us was this woman named Sandra. She must have been in her 50s, and she was so calm, so competent. She explained everything to me in a way I could understand, made me feel like I wasn't stupid for being scared. Lena paused, the memory overwhelming her for a moment. When Tyler started getting better, Sandra sat with me during one of her breaks. I told her I was a medical assistant, that I'd wanted to be a nurse but couldn't afford to finish school. And she said, "It's never too late. I went back to school when my youngest was in kindergarten. Best decision I ever made." What did you say to that? Ethan asked quietly. I said, "Maybe someday." And she looked me right in the eye and said, "Someday isn't a day of the week. Either you want it or you don't." That stuck with me. For 2 years, every time I felt stuck or hopeless, I'd think about Sandra saying that. Someday isn't a day of the week. Ethan was typing rapidly on his laptop. That's your opening. That's the heart of it. They worked for 2 hours, building the speech piece by piece. Ethan would suggest a transition or a phrasing, and Lena would refine it to sound like her actual voice. Gradually, the speech transformed from a generic outline into something real and honest. "Read it out loud," Ethan said when they'd finished the first complete draft. Lena did, stumbling over a few phrases, her voice shaking slightly. When she finished, Ethan was quiet for a moment. "That's powerful," he said finally. "Really powerful. How did it feel?" "Vulnerable, like I'm exposing parts of my life that I usually keep hidden." That's exactly what makes it effective. People respond to authenticity. He closed his laptop. "You're going to do great at the gala." "I wish I had your confidence." "You will. After we practice this about 50 more times." She laughed despite her nerves. 50? Give or take, public speaking is like anything else. It gets easier with repetition. He stood, gathering his things. "Same time next week? We'll work on delivery and timing." "Same time next week," Lena agreed. As she drove home, she realized something surprising. She'd enjoyed that. Not just the productive work on the speech, but the time with Ethan. The easy conversation, the way he challenged her to dig deeper while also making her feel capable. It was dangerous territory, she knew. Ethan Vale was her benefactor, not her friend. Getting too comfortable with him, starting to see him as anything other than a professional connection, that was a recipe for disappointment. But when he texted her later that evening with an encouraging message about her first draft, she couldn't help smiling. The weeks leading up to the gala fell into a rhythm. Lena attended classes during the day, studied in the evenings, and met with Ethan twice a week to refine her speech. Tyler started 2nd grade and joined an after-school program that the scholarship childcare funds covered. Life was busy, but manageable in a way it hadn't been in years. And slowly, imperceptibly, Lena's relationship with Ethan shifted. It started with small things, him remembering that she had an anatomy exam and texting to ask how it went, her mentioning that Tyler was excited about Halloween, and Ethan sharing stories about Emma's elaborate costume plans. Conversations that extended beyond the speech, beyond the professional boundaries they'd initially established. One evening in late September, after a particularly productive practice session, Ethan suggested they grab dinner. "Nothing fancy," he said quickly, seeming to sense her hesitation. "Just the diner across the street. I'm starving, and I assume you are too, since we've been at this for 3 hours. Lena glanced at her phone. Tyler was at Maria's for a sleepover with her nephew. She had nowhere she needed to be. "Sure," she said. "Why not?" The diner was a classic small-town establishment with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus. They slid into a booth near the window, and Lena found herself relaxing in the casual environment. "This is nice," Ethan said, looking around appreciatively. "I don't do enough of this." Diners? Normal. Casual, just existing without it being a business function or a scheduled event. He picked up the menu. "Emma and I used to go to a place like this every Sunday morning after Miranda died. It was the only routine I could manage to maintain." It was the first time he'd mentioned his wife's name to her directly. "That must have been incredibly hard," Lena said quietly. "It was hell. The grief was one thing, but the sudden solo parenting, I had no idea what I was doing. Emma was 2.5. She kept asking for her mommy, and I couldn't explain it in a way she'd understand. I couldn't even process it myself." He set down the menu, his expression distant. "Money helps with a lot of things, but it doesn't help with that. The middle of the night terrors when your kid is crying for someone who's never coming back. The guilt of feeling relieved when the nanny could handle bedtime because you couldn't face another round of 'Where's mommy?' How did you get through it? Time, therapy, throwing myself into work, which was probably the least healthy coping mechanism, but at least it was productive." He met her eyes. "And eventually, accepting that I was allowed to be a flawed parent, that getting it wrong sometimes didn't mean I was failing Emma." The waitress arrived to take their order, interrupting the moment. They both ordered burgers and fries, and after she left, Ethan seemed to shake off the melancholy. "Sorry," he said. "That got heavy." "Don't apologize, I asked." Lena traced patterns on the table with her finger. "Tyler's father left when I was 6 months pregnant. Just walked out one day and never came back. No forwarding address, no child support, nothing. For a long time, I was angry, furious actually. How dare he just abandon us?" That's a reasonable response. Maybe, but it also wasn't productive. I spent so much energy being angry at someone who clearly didn't care that I was exhausting myself. She paused. Eventually, I realized that Tyler didn't need me to be angry at his father. He needed me to be present for him. So I let it go. That takes a lot of strength. Or stubbornness. I'm not always sure which. Ethan smiled. Both, probably. The best people usually are. Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Ethan told her about Emma's current obsession with marine biology and her determination to become a dolphin trainer. Lena shared stories about Tyler's newfound love of knock-knock jokes, most of which made absolutely no sense, but which he found hilarious. It was easy, comfortable. Lena couldn't remember the last time she'd enjoyed someone's company this much. As they were finishing their meal, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "Everything okay?" Lena asked. "Yeah, just work stuff. A situation in our Singapore office that apparently can't wait until morning." He typed out a quick response, then set the phone down. "Sorry about that." "Don't be. I know you have an actual job beyond helping struggling single moms write speeches." "The speech stuff is part of my actual job. The foundation isn't a hobby. It's central to what I'm trying to build." "Which is what exactly?" Ethan considered the question. "A legacy that matters. My father built Vail Industries into a successful company, and I've expanded it. But in 100 years, no one's going to care about our profit margins or market share. They might care about the families we helped, the lives we changed. That's what I want to be remembered for." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. "That's a good goal," Lena said softly. "What about you? What do you want?" "Honestly, I just want Tyler to have a better childhood than I did. I want him to not worry about money, to go to college without drowning in debt, to have opportunities I never had." She smiled ruefully. "Not exactly changing the world." "You're changing his world. That counts." They left the diner around 9, and Ethan walked her to her car, despite her protests that it wasn't necessary. "Thank you for dinner," Lena said as she unlocked her door. "And for the conversation. I don't get a lot of adult interaction that isn't about work or Tyler's school schedule." "Same here, actually. Most of my conversations are board meetings or investor calls." Ethan leaned against her car, looking oddly reluctant to leave. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever wonder if you're doing the right thing? With your life, your choices, all of it?" The question caught her off guard. "All the time. Why?" "I've been thinking lately about balance. About whether I'm being a good father to Emma or just a present one. About whether expanding the foundation is genuinely helpful, or just my way of assuaging guilt about having more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. He ran a hand through his hair. Sorry, that's probably more honesty than you were expecting. No, I get it. I wonder the same things. Am I making the right choice going back to school? Is Tyler getting enough of my attention? Am I setting him up for success or just chasing my own dreams at his expense? Lena sighed. I think the fact that we ask these questions is probably a good sign. It means we care. Maybe. Ethan smiled slightly. You're easy to talk to, you know that? So are you. They stood there for a moment, the parking lot quiet around them. Something hung in the air between them, undefined but present. Then Ethan straightened. I should let you go. See you next Tuesday? Next Tuesday, Lena confirmed. She drove home with her mind spinning. That conversation had crossed some invisible line from professional to personal, and she wasn't sure how she felt about it. Actually, that wasn't true. She knew exactly how she felt about it. She liked Ethan Vale. Liked him as more than just a generous benefactor. Liked the way he listened when she talked. The way he was honest about his own struggles. The way he seemed genuinely interested in her life. And that was a problem. Because he wasn't part of her world. He was a billionaire living a life she couldn't even imagine. And she was a single mom on a scholarship. Whatever this connection was, it couldn't go anywhere. Letting herself think otherwise was setting herself up for heartbreak. She needed to maintain boundaries, keep things professional. Remember what this relationship actually was. But even as she told herself all of this, she couldn't stop replaying their conversation in the diner, couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her in the parking lot. The gala was 2 weeks away. After that, their regular meetings would end. Ethan would go back to running his empire, and she would focus on her studies. This strange interlude would be over. That should have been a relief. It wasn't. The following Tuesday, Lena arrived at their usual coffee shop determined to be professional and distant. That resolution lasted approximately 5 minutes. You seem different today, Ethan observed as they settled into their usual corner table. Just tired. I had an exam yesterday. How did it go? Well, I think. Won't know for a few days. They ran through her speech, with Ethan coaching her on pacing and emphasis. He was encouraging but also honest about what wasn't working, which Lena appreciated. The middle section still feels rushed, he said after her third practice run. You're speeding through Sandra's advice because you're uncomfortable with the emotion, but that's the most important part. That's where people will connect. It feels manipulative, like I'm using her words for effect. You're honoring her impact on your life. There's a difference. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Let me ask you this. If Sandra were in the audience at the gala, would you be embarrassed to share that story? Lena thought about it. No, she'd probably be proud. Then share it like you're talking to her. Not to 300 donors, but to the one person who inspired you. She tried again, this time slowing down, letting the emotion come through. When she finished, Ethan nodded. Better, much better. You're almost ready. Almost? One more practice session next week, and you'll be perfect. They packed up their materials, but neither of them moved to leave. The coffee shop was nearly empty, the late afternoon sun slanting through the windows. Can I ask you something? Lena said impulsively. Of course. Why did you really start the foundation? And don't give me the legacy answer, the real reason. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low and honest. Because I was ashamed. After Miranda died, I threw myself into work and convinced myself I was doing it for Emma to secure her future. But really, I was running away from grief, from being a present father, from facing the fact that I was alone. He met her eyes. By the time I came up for air and realized what I'd been doing, Emma was 5 years old. I'd missed 3 years of her life. I'd been there physically, but not emotionally. Not really. You were grieving. You were doing the best you could. Was I? Or was I taking the easy path because I could afford to? He shook his head. Starting the foundation was my way of trying to balance the scales. I couldn't get those years back with Emma, but I could help other single parents who didn't have the resources I'd had. I could try to prevent other kids from losing their parents to grief or overwork or desperation. That's not shameful, that's human. Maybe, but it still haunts me sometimes. The thought that if I'd handled things differently, if I'd been stronger. You were strong enough, Lena interrupted. You survived. You kept Emma safe. You built something meaningful. That's more than most people manage. Ethan looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. How do you do that? Do what? Make me feel like I'm not fundamentally broken. The words hung between them, vulnerable and raw. You're not broken, Lena said softly. You're just human, like the rest of us. He reached across the table and took her hand, the gesture so natural it didn't feel strange. Thank you. Lena knew she should pull away, should reinforce those boundaries she'd promised herself. But his hand was warm and steady, and she couldn't quite bring herself to let go. They sat like that for a long moment, connected across the table in a way that had nothing to do with scholarships or speeches. Then Ethan's phone buzzed insistently, shattering the moment. He pulled back, checking the screen. I'm sorry, I have to take this. Conference call that's apparently starting early. Go. I need to pick up Tyler anyway. They gathered their things and walked out together. In the parking lot, Ethan hesitated before getting into his car. Lena, what I said in there about being ashamed, about missing Emma's early years, that stays between us, right? I don't usually... I know. And yes, it stays between us. She smiled. Your secret's safe. He smiled back, relief evident. See you next week. Last practice before the big show. As Lena drove to pick up Tyler from his after-school program, her mind was reeling. That hand-holding moment, the intimacy of their conversation, this was getting complicated in ways she hadn't anticipated. She liked Ethan, really liked him, and unless she was completely misreading the situation, he felt something for her too. But where could this possibly go? He was her benefactor, her ticket to a better future. Getting romantically involved with him would muddy everything, would make her question whether she'd earned her scholarship or simply become another obligation. And yet when Tyler climbed into the car, chattering about his day, and mentioned that his friend Lucas's dad was taking them to the arcade this weekend, Lena found herself thinking that Tyler deserved a father figure. Someone stable and present and good. Someone like Ethan. She pushed the thought away immediately. That was a dangerous path to start down. The final practice session arrived too quickly. Lena met Ethan at his office this time instead of the coffee shop. He wanted her to practice with the actual microphone setup they'd be using at the gala. The Foundation's conference room had been transformed into a makeshift stage, complete with podium, microphone, and a single spotlight. This is intimidating, Lena said, staring at the setup. Good. Better to be intimidated now than on Saturday night. Ethan handed her the printed copy of her speech. Let's run it 3 times. First for accuracy, second for timing, third for polish. They worked through it methodically. Ethan was exacting in his feedback, noting every pause, every stumble, every moment where her delivery didn't match the emotion of the words. You're dropping your voice at the end of sentences, he said after the second run-through. Probably a nervousness thing, but it makes you sound uncertain. Keep your energy up through the whole sentence. This is harder than I thought it would be. Public speaking is a skill like anything else. You're doing great. He checked his watch. One more time, and then I have something for you. The third run-through went smoothly. Lena felt herself settling into the rhythm of the speech, finding the emotional beats without forcing them. When she finished, Ethan was smiling. That's it. That's the one. If you deliver it like that on Saturday, you'll bring the house down. You think so? I know so. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small box. I got you something, a thank you gift for being willing to do this. Lena opened the box to find a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm in the shape of a nurse's caduceus symbol. Ethan, I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not too much. You're about to stand in front of 300 people and bare your soul for the sake of the Foundation. The least I can do is give you a token of appreciation. He gestured to the bracelet. Besides, I thought you could wear it Saturday night, for luck. She lifted the bracelet from the box, admiring the craftsmanship. It's beautiful. May I? Ethan held out his hand. Lena gave him the bracelet, and he fastened it around her wrist, his fingers gentle against her skin. The touch sent electricity up her arm. Perfect, he said softly, not quite letting go of her hand. They stood there, close enough that Lena could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from him. This was the moment where one of them would either step back or step forward, where this undefined thing between them would either remain unspoken or become real. Ethan's phone rang, shattering the tension. He stepped back quickly, pulling out the phone and silencing it without even looking at the screen. "Sorry, I should have turned that off." "It's okay." Lena clutched the bracelet like a lifeline. "I should go anyway. Pick up Tyler." "Right, of course." Ethan seemed flustered, which was oddly endearing. "So I'll see you Saturday? The car will pick you up at 5:30. "The car?" "I'm sending a car for all the scholarship recipients who are speaking. Seemed easier than coordinating everyone's transportation." He paused. "Unless you'd rather drive yourself?" "No, the car is fine. Great, thank you." They said awkward goodbyes, and Lena practically fled to her car. Once inside, she gripped the steering wheel and took several deep breaths. She was in trouble. Deep, complicated, probably going to end badly trouble. Because she wasn't just attracted to Ethan Vale anymore. She was falling for him. And that was a catastrophically bad idea. The next 3 days passed in a blur of classes, studying, and obsessing over the gala. Lena tried on her dress 4 separate times, practiced her speech in front of Maria and Tyler, who pronounced it boring but good, and barely slept. Saturday morning arrived with perfect autumn weather, cool and clear. Lena dropped Tyler at Maria's apartment for an overnight stay, then spent 2 hours getting ready. At 5:30 precisely, a sleek black car pulled up in front of her building. "Ms. Brooks?" the driver asked as she approached. "That's me?" He opened the back door and Lena slid inside, feeling absurdly fancy. The Riverside Grand Hotel was a 20-minute drive. Lena spent the time going over her speech one more time, mouthing the words silently. When they arrived, a staff member met her at a side entrance and escorted her to a private waiting area where other scholarship recipients were gathering. Lena recognized a few faces from foundation events, but most were strangers. Jennifer appeared, clipboard in hand, looking polished and efficient. "Lena, you look stunning. How are you feeling?" "Terrified." "Perfect. That means you'll deliver well." Jennifer checked her clipboard. "You're speaking third right after Michael Chen and before the fund allocation announcement. Ethan will introduce you himself." "He will?" "He insisted. Said you two worked closely on your speech and he wanted to be the one to present you." Jennifer smiled. "He doesn't usually do that, by the way. Normally he just introduces the segment and sits down." "You must have made an impression." Lena's heart raced. What did that mean? The hour before the speeches began was a blur of nervous energy. Lena watched from backstage as the ballroom filled with elegantly dressed guests, the sound of their conversation a distant hum. Then suddenly, it was time. Michael Chen delivered his speech about using his scholarship to complete a degree in education and become a teacher in underserved communities. The audience applauded warmly. Then Ethan was walking onto the stage, and Lena's breath caught. He looked incredible in his tuxedo, commanding and confident, but when he spoke, his voice was warm and genuine. Our next speaker is someone who has become very important to our foundation's mission. Lena Brooks is a single mother who was working full-time as a medical assistant while raising her son Tyler alone. Despite her dedication and hard work, pursuing her dream of becoming a nurse seemed impossible, until she received one of our scholarships this year. He paused, and his eyes found Lena in the wings. Over the past months, I've had the privilege of getting to know Lena and her story. She embodies everything this foundation stands for: resilience, determination, and an unwavering commitment to building a better future. Please welcome Lena Brooks. The applause was thunderous. Lena walked onto the stage on shaking legs, taking her place behind the podium. The lights were bright, making it hard to see individual faces in the audience. But she could feel them. 300 people, all watching her, waiting. She looked down at her note cards, took a deep breath, and began. "Some day isn't a day of the week." Her voice was steady, clear. She looked up from her notes, finding Ethan standing off to the side of the stage, nodding encouragement. And she told her story. She told them about Tyler's pneumonia, about Sandra the nurse, about the moment she decided to stop waiting for someday and make it today. She told them about the struggles of single parenthood, about the impossible choices, about the scholarship that had transformed everything. And as she spoke, something remarkable happened. Her nervousness faded, replaced by conviction. These people needed to hear this, needed to understand what their donations made possible. She finished with the words she and Ethan had crafted together. This scholarship didn't just give me an education, it gave me hope. It showed me that someone believed I was worth investing in, and that belief changed everything. Thank you. The applause was deafening. People were standing, a genuine standing ovation that made tears spring to Lena's eyes. She looked at Ethan, and the pride in his face made her heart soar. As she left the stage, he caught her hand briefly, squeezing it. "You were perfect," he murmured. The rest of the evening passed in a whirlwind. People approached her during the reception, shaking her hand, telling her how moving her speech was. Donors asking how they could support more scholarships like hers. Other recipients sharing their own stories. Through it all, Lena was hyper-aware of Ethan across the room, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Finally, as the event was winding down, he appeared at her side. "Want to get some air?" he asked quietly. They slipped out onto a balcony overlooking the hotel gardens. The night was cool, and Lena shivered slightly. Immediately, Ethan shrugged off his tuxedo jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "You were extraordinary. I was nervous the entire time. It didn't show. Lena, you move people. I've already had 3 major donors commit to funding additional scholarships because of your speech." "Really?" "Really." He leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at the gardens. "You know what the best part was? Watching you realize in real time that you have power, that your voice matters. That was incredible to witness." Lena joined him at the railing, acutely aware of how close they were standing. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. "Yes, you could have. I just helped you see what was already there." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the party a distant murmur behind them. "Ethan?" Lena said finally. "Yeah?" "What are we doing here?" He turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw the same confusion and longing she felt. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know I can't stop thinking about you. And I know that's probably inappropriate given our professional relationship, but it's true." Lena's heart hammered. "I can't stop thinking about you either." The admission hung between them, electric and dangerous. "This is complicated," Ethan said. "Impossibly complicated. You're a scholarship recipient. I'm the foundation's founder. People would talk. They'd say you didn't earn it, that there were ulterior motives." "I know." "And there's Emma and Tyler to think about, getting them involved in something that might not work out, that could hurt them." "I know that too." Ethan reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was intimate, tender. "But I like you, Lena Brooks, more than I've liked anyone in a very long time." "I like you too." They stood there, teetering on the edge of something that could change everything. Then, slowly, carefully, Ethan leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. Lena answered by kissing him back, her hands coming up to rest against his chest. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, reality came crashing back. "We can't do this," Lena whispered, even as every part of her wanted to kiss him again. "I know. People would think, I know. And Tyler and Emma, I know, Lena. I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea." Ethan cupped her face gently. "But I also know that I haven't felt this alive in 6 years. And I think you feel it too." She did. Heaven help her, she did. "So what do we do?" she asked. "I don't know, but I know I don't want to walk away from this. From you." He smiled ruefully, even though that would probably be the smart thing to do. "Probably." They stood there on the balcony, the future uncertain, the complications overwhelming. But for just this moment, none of that mattered. For just this moment, there was only this. 2 people who had found each other in the most unexpected way, connected by understanding and drawn together by something neither of them could quite name, but both desperately wanted to explore. Whatever happened next would be complicated and messy and potentially disastrous. But as Ethan pulled her close again, as Lena let herself lean into his embrace, she thought maybe, just maybe, it might also be worth it. The drive home from the gala felt surreal. Lena sat in the back of the car, still wearing Ethan's jacket over her shoulders, her lips still tingling from that kiss. She touched her fingers to her mouth, half convinced she'd imagined the whole thing. But no, it had happened. Ethan Vale had kissed her, had told her he couldn't stop thinking about her, had looked at her like she was something precious, and she had no idea what to do with any of it. The car pulled up to her apartment building just after 11. Maria's living room light was still on. She'd be waiting up, desperate for details about the gala. But Lena couldn't face her friend's questions yet, couldn't put into words what had happened on that balcony. She paid the driver, thanked him quietly, and climbed the stairs to her apartment in a daze. Once inside, she kicked off her heels and sank onto the couch, Ethan's jacket still wrapped around her. It smelled like him, something expensive and clean, with an underlying warmth that made her chest ache. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Did you get home safely?" Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Yes, just walked in." "Good. I'm glad." A pause, then, "I meant what I said tonight. All of it." Lena stared at the message, her heart racing. She started to type a response 3 different times, deleting each one. What could she possibly say? That she felt the same way? That she was terrified? That this was the best and worst thing that could have happened? Finally, she settled on, "Me too, but we need to talk about what this means." "I know. Tomorrow? I could come to you or we could meet somewhere neutral." Tomorrow was Sunday. Tyler would be home. And Lena wasn't ready to explain Ethan's presence to her son when she couldn't even explain it to herself. "Tomorrow afternoon? Around 2? There's a park near Riverside Elementary, usually quiet on Sundays. I'll be there." Lena set down her phone and closed her eyes. What was she doing? Getting involved with Ethan was reckless on every level. He was her benefactor, the person funding her entire future. If things went wrong, when things went wrong, she could lose everything. But when she thought about walking away, about pretending that kiss had never happened, something in her chest rebelled. She hadn't felt this way about anyone since Tyler's father. Hadn't let herself feel this way because caring meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant the potential for devastating hurt. Yet here she was, already in too deep to back out easily. A knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find Maria standing there in pajamas, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I saw your light come on," Maria said, pushing past her into the apartment. "And there's no way you're going to bed without telling me everything." Lena accepted the wine glass with a weak smile. "It went well. The speech, I mean. People seemed to respond." "Uh-huh. And?" Maria settled onto the couch, patting the cushion beside her. "You've got that look." "What look?" "The something happened and I don't know how to process it look. I've known you for 3 years, Lena. I can read you." Maria's eyes widened as she noticed the tuxedo jacket. "Is that a man's jacket? Did you meet someone at the gala?" "It's complicated. It's always complicated. Talk to me." So Lena did. She told Maria everything about the weeks of working with Ethan on her speech, about their deepening friendship, about the conversation at the diner and the hand-holding at the coffee shop, and finally, about the kiss on the balcony. Maria listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to concern to something that looked almost like excitement. "Okay," she said when Lena finished. "First of all, this is huge. Second, I need you to be really honest with me. How do you feel about him?" "I like him. Really like him. Which is terrifying because he's rich and you're not. And you're worried people will think you're using him, or that he's using his position to take advantage of you, or that this will mess up your scholarship, or that it won't work out and you'll lose your chance at a better future." Maria ticked the points off on her fingers. "Did I miss anything?" "Tyler. I'm worried about Tyler getting attached to someone who might not stick around." "That's fair. But Lena, those are all external concerns. I'm asking how you feel deep down when you think about Ethan Vale." Lena took a sip of wine, gathering her thoughts. "I feel like I can breathe around him, like I don't have to pretend to be stronger than I am or hide the parts of my life that are messy. He understands the single parent thing in a way nobody else does. And when he looks at me, I feel—" She trailed off, searching for the right word. "Seen," Maria supplied softly. "Yeah, seen. Then maybe those external concerns, while valid, aren't enough reason to walk away from something real. Or maybe they're exactly the reasons I should walk away before this gets more complicated. Maria studied her friend's face. You're going to meet with him tomorrow, aren't you? Yeah. And you're going to try to do the sensible thing and end it before it really begins. That's the plan. But you don't want to. No, Lena admitted quietly. I really don't want to. Maria reached over and squeezed her hand. Then don't. Life's too short to always take the safe path, Lena. Sometimes you have to take a risk on something that feels right, even when the logical part of your brain is screaming that it's a terrible idea. Says the woman who's been dating the same guy for 5 years and won't commit because you're not ready. Which is exactly why you should listen to me. I'm an expert in what happens when you let fear make your decisions for you. Maria's expression turned serious. Don't be like me. If this man makes you feel seen and valued and like you can finally breathe, don't let him go without at least exploring what this could be. After Maria left, Lena lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. In most of them, things ended badly. But in a few, in the ones she barely let herself imagine, things worked out. She and Ethan found a way to navigate the complications. Tyler and Emma became friends. The four of them became something resembling a family. It was a dangerous dream, but it was also achingly tempting. Sunday morning, Lena picked up Tyler from Maria's apartment to find him in an unusually chatty mood. We stayed up until almost midnight, he announced proudly, and Carlos taught me how to play this really cool card game, and Maria made us hot chocolate with marshmallows and... Sounds like you had fun, Lena said, ruffling his hair. I did. Can I have another sleepover next weekend? We'll see, buddy. Back at their apartment, Tyler settled in with his new baseball cards while Lena tried to focus on reviewing notes for her upcoming pharmacology exam. But her mind kept drifting to the afternoon ahead, to the conversation with Ethan that would determine everything. At 1:30, she told Tyler they were going to the park. The one with the good swings? He asked hopefully. That's the one. Go grab your jacket. The park was indeed quiet when they arrived, just a few families scattered across the playground. Tyler immediately ran toward the swings, leaving Lena to claim a bench with a clear view of both the playground and the parking lot. At precisely 2 o'clock, a familiar car pulled into the lot. Ethan emerged wearing jeans and a casual sweater, the most dressed down she'd ever seen him. He looked younger somehow, more approachable. He spotted her and started walking over, and Lena's heart did a traitorous flip. Hi, he said, sitting down beside her on the bench but maintaining a careful distance. Hi. They sat in awkward silence for a moment, watching Tyler pump his legs on the swing, going higher and higher. Is that him? Ethan asked. Tyler? Yeah, the one trying to swing high enough to achieve orbit. Ethan smiled. Emma does the same thing, drives me crazy. She's convinced she's going to flip all the way over the top bar someday. Boys and girls, same death wish. Another silence, less awkward this time. So, Ethan said finally, we should probably talk about last night. Probably. He turned to face her fully. I don't regret it. The kiss, telling you how I feel, none of it. But I understand if you do. If you think it was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake, Lena said carefully. But I do think it's complicated in ways that might not be fixable. Tell me what you're worried about. All of it. So she did. She laid out every concern, every fear, every potential disaster scenario. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he nodded slowly. Those are all legitimate concerns, and I'd be lying if I said I had easy answers for all of them. He paused. But here's what I know. The scholarship is yours regardless of what happens between us personally. That's non-negotiable. It's awarded based on merit and need, and you qualified on both counts before I ever developed feelings for you. But people won't see it that way. Some people won't. But Lena, people are always going to have opinions. If we let fear of judgment dictate our choices, we'll never do anything meaningful. He shifted closer, though still not touching her. As for Tyler and Emma, yes, introducing them to each other is a risk. But I think it's a risk worth taking if we're thoughtful about how we do it. And when it doesn't work out, when the novelty wears off and you realize I'm just a struggling single mom with student loan debt and a used car? Ethan's expression softened. Is that really what you think? That this is novelty? Lena, I've dated plenty of women over the past 6 years. Society women, successful professionals, people from my world, none of them made me feel the way you do. Which is how. Like I can be honest about my failures. Like being a flawed parent doesn't make me a bad person. Like maybe I'm worth more than my bank account and my company's stock price. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. You see me, Lena. The real me. Not the billionaire or the philanthropist or the image I project at board meetings. Just me. And I see you too. I see how hard you work, how fiercely you love Tyler, how determined you are to build a better life. That's not novelty. That's real. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. This is still a terrible idea. Probably the worst I've had in years. We're going to mess this up. Almost definitely. And it could hurt our kids. It could, Ethan acknowledged. But Lena, they could also gain something beautiful. Tyler could have a positive male role model. Emma could have someone who understands what it's like to have a single parent. And both of them could see that it's possible for adults to find happiness again, even after loss and disappointment. He had a point. Lena had been so focused on the potential downsides that she hadn't considered what Tyler might gain. Tyler, who asked every few months if he'd ever have a dad like his friends did. Tyler, who'd latched on to every male teacher and coach he'd ever had, desperate for that father figure. Tyler, who deserved to see his mother happy instead of just surviving. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, but I'm more scared of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Tyler's voice rang out across the playground. Mama, watch this! They both turned to see him hanging upside down from the monkey bars, grinning proudly. Very impressive, buddy, well, Lena called. But please don't fall and crack your head open. I won't! He immediately proceeded to attempt an even more precarious maneuver. Ethan laughed. Kids are terrifying. The absolute worst. Best thing that ever happened to me, but absolutely terrifying. Emma wanted to climb onto the roof last week to get a better view of the stars. I nearly had a heart attack. They fell into easy conversation about their children's various death-defying activities, and gradually, the tension between them eased. So, what do we do? Lena asked eventually. Assuming we're actually going to try this. We take it slow. We're honest with each other about concerns as they come up. We introduce the kids gradually, in low-pressure situations. And we keep the foundation relationship completely separate from our personal one. How do we do that last part? I'll have Jennifer be your primary contact for scholarship matters. I'll recuse myself from any decisions that directly affect you. And we make sure that professionally, everything is above board and documented. It sounded reasonable. Almost too reasonable. You've thought about this, Lena observed. I spent most of last night and this morning thinking about nothing else. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. I want this to work, Lena. I want to see where this goes, but only if you do too. Tyler was running toward them now, his face flushed from exertion. Mama, I'm thirsty. Do we have any water? In the car, sweetie. Go grab your bottle from the back seat. Tyler started to run off, then noticed Ethan for the first time. He stopped, studying this stranger sitting close to his mother. Who's that? He asked, with the blunt directness of 7-year-olds everywhere. Lena's mind raced. How did she introduce Ethan? As a friend? As someone from the foundation? I'm Ethan, Ethan said easily, offering his hand for Tyler to shake. I'm a friend of your mom's from her school program. I heard you just had a birthday. Did you have a good party? Tyler's face lit up. The best party ever. There was a pitching machine and face painting and a huge cake that looked like a baseball diamond with actual bases. Wow, that does sound amazing. What was your favorite part? Probably hitting 3 balls in a row. My friend Jordan said I should try out for Little League. That's a great idea. Do you play much baseball? And just like that, they were off, Tyler chattering away about his baseball aspirations while Ethan listened with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions that showed he was actually paying attention. Lena watched them, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. After Tyler ran off to get his water, Ethan turned back to her. He's great, really great. He liked you. Yeah? Yeah. He doesn't warm up to people that easily, but you... She trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. I meant what I said about taking this slow, Ethan said quietly. But Lena, I really want to try. She looked at him, at this man who had appeared in her life like something out of a dream, who saw her and valued her and wanted to build something real, and made her decision. Okay, 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 we'll try. Slowly, carefully, but we'll try. The smile that crossed Ethan's face was worth every ounce of risk. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. Lena focused on her classes, which were becoming increasingly challenging as they moved deeper into the semester. Ethan traveled for work but called her every evening, and they talked for hours about everything and nothing: their kids, their days, their hopes and fears. They saw each other in person twice a week, always in public places, always keeping things casual. Coffee shops and park benches, and one memorable afternoon at a bookstore where they'd spent 3 hours browsing and debating their favorite authors. It felt like dating in the most traditional sense, getting to know each other, building a foundation of friendship alongside the attraction. And Lena found herself falling harder with each conversation. But they were careful, so careful. They didn't publicize their relationship, didn't post pictures on social media, kept their meetings in places where they were unlikely to run into foundation staff or major donors. It was exhausting, all that caution, but it was also necessary. 3 weeks after the gala, Ethan suggested they introduce Emma and Tyler. Nothing formal, he said over coffee at their usual spot. Maybe the four of us could go to the Children's Museum? It's neutral territory, kid-focused, low pressure. Lena's stomach fluttered nervously. You really think they're ready? I think if we wait for the perfect moment, we'll be waiting forever. And Emma's been asking questions about why I've been smiling at my phone so much lately. What did you tell her? That I've made a new friend who makes me happy, which is true, if incomplete. They settled on the following Saturday. Lena told Tyler they were meeting some new friends, deliberately keeping it vague. She didn't want to build it up too much in case things went badly. But she needn't have worried. Emma Vale turned out to be a delightful 8-year-old with her father's gray eyes and an enthusiasm for marine biology that bordered on obsession. She and Tyler bonded almost immediately over a shared love of animals, though Emma's interest in dolphins and Tyler's interest in dogs didn't overlap much. Did you know dolphins have their own language? Emma informed Tyler seriously as they examined a tide pool exhibit. They use clicks and whistles to communicate with each other. That's cool. My neighbor's dog knows 7 different commands. He can shake and roll over and play dead. Dogs are okay, but dolphins are smarter. They're one of the only animals that can recognize themselves in a mirror. I saw a dog on YouTube that could skateboard. Ethan and Lena watched the debate with amusement, hanging back to let the kids interact naturally. They're doing okay, Ethan observed. Better than okay. Tyler hasn't mentioned video games once, which is basically a miracle. They wandered through the museum as a loose group of 4, the kids running ahead to the next exhibit while the adults followed at a more leisurely pace. It felt surprisingly natural, like they'd been doing this forever. At the museum cafe, they claimed a table and ordered pizza. Emma dominated the conversation with facts about various sea creatures, while Tyler listened with genuine interest and occasionally interjected with questions. You know a lot about dolphins, he said finally. They're my favorite. I'm going to be a marine biologist when I grow up and study them. That's so cool. I want to play baseball professionally. Like for the Yankees? Maybe. Or the Red Sox. I haven't decided yet. Ethan caught Lena's eye across the table, and they shared a smile. This was working. The kids were getting along. Everything was going to be fine. After lunch, they stopped by a fountain where visitors could toss in pennies. Make a wish, Emma instructed Tyler, handing him a penny from her pocket. What should I wish for? You're not supposed to tell, or it won't come true. That's the rule. Tyler nodded seriously, closed his eyes, and tossed his penny in. Lena watched him, wondering what 7-year-old dreams he was entrusting to the fountain. When they finally said goodbye in the parking lot, Emma hugged Tyler spontaneously. You're cool, she declared. Can we hang out again sometime? Tyler looked at Lena, then at Ethan, clearly trying to figure out the relationship dynamics. Sure, that'd be fun. In the car on the way home, Tyler was uncharacteristically quiet. Did you have fun? Lena asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. Yeah, Emma's really smart. She is. Did you like her? Uh-huh. A pause. Mama? Is Mr. Ethan your boyfriend? Lena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. They'd agreed to be honest with the kids when the time came, but she hadn't expected the question quite so soon. Would that bother you if he was? She asked carefully. Tyler thought about it. I don't think so. He's nice, and he listened when I talked about baseball, not like Uncle Marcus, who always just says, "That's great, kid," without really paying attention. Uncle Marcus was Maria's brother, well-meaning but perpetually distracted. Mr. Ethan is nice, Lena agreed. And yes, we're dating, but we're taking things slow because we both want to make sure it's right for everyone, including you and Emma. Does that mean I might get a dad? The hope in his voice nearly broke her heart. Maybe someday, baby, but that's a long way off. Right now, we're just spending time together and seeing how things go. Is that okay? Yeah, it's okay. Tyler was quiet for another moment. I wished for that, at the fountain. For what? For you to be happy. You've been smiling more lately, and I wished you'd keep being happy. Lena had to blink back tears. Thank you, sweetheart. That's a beautiful wish. That evening, after Tyler was in bed, Ethan called. Emma won't stop talking about Tyler, he reported. Apparently he's surprisingly smart for someone who likes sports. Lena laughed. High praise from the future marine biologist. She asked if we could all go to the aquarium together next time. I told her maybe. Tyler asked if you were my boyfriend. A pause. What did you tell him? The truth, that we're dating but taking things slow. How did he react? He said he wished for me to be happy. Her voice caught slightly. At the fountain, that was his wish. That's... Ethan's voice was rough. That's a good kid you're raising, Lena. He is, and Emma's pretty wonderful too. They get along, that's huge. It is. They talked for another hour about nothing in particular, just enjoying each other's company across the phone line. When they finally said goodnight, Lena felt something settle in her chest, something that felt suspiciously like contentment. Maybe this could work after all. November arrived with the first real cold snap of the season. Lena juggled midterms, Tyler's school projects, and an increasingly demanding clinical rotation schedule. Ethan traveled to the West Coast for a week of meetings, and they survived the separation through nightly video calls and an embarrassing number of text messages. They saw each other as a foursome twice more, once at a local fair, once for a movie and dinner. Each time, Emma and Tyler got along better, developing an easy sibling-like dynamic of friendly competition and mutual teasing. But they were still careful about public appearances. Still hadn't told anyone beyond Maria and Ethan's assistant Jennifer about their relationship. Still maintained the fiction that they were just friends who occasionally hung out with their kids. It was becoming exhausting. I hate sneaking around, Lena said one evening as they sat in Ethan's car in a quiet parking lot, the closest thing to privacy they could manage. I feel like a teenager hiding from my parents. I know. I hate it too. Ethan ran his hands through his hair in frustration. But I don't know how to go public without it affecting your scholarship situation. Maybe we just accept that it's going to affect it. Maybe we stop trying to keep everything separate and just deal with whatever fallout comes. Lena, I'm serious. We've been doing this for almost 2 months now, and we're still acting like it's some shameful secret, but it's not. We're two adults who care about each other, who happen to have a professional connection through the foundation. That's not scandalous. It's not scandalous to us, but donors might see it differently. Board members might question the scholarship program's integrity. Then let them question it. The program helps hundreds of families. One relationship isn't going to undermine that. Ethan looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You really believe that? I do, and I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and when they broke apart, he was smiling. Okay, he said. Okay? Okay, we stop hiding. We go public, and we deal with whatever comes. He cupped her face gently. But Lena, if this backfires, if people start questioning whether you earned your scholarship, then I'll show them my transcript and remind them that I'm maintaining a 3.8 GPA while working part-time and raising a kid. My academics speak for themselves. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm practical. There's a difference. They decided to start small, attending the foundation's annual Thanksgiving fundraiser together as a couple. It was a semi-formal event, less prestigious than the October gala, but still well attended by donors and board members. Are you sure about this? Ethan asked for the third time as they got ready. No, but I'm doing it anyway. The fundraiser was held at the same hotel as the gala, though in a smaller ballroom. Lena wore a simple burgundy dress, and Ethan looked devastating in a charcoal suit. When they walked in together, Lena saw the exact moment people noticed, the subtle double takes, the whispered conversations, the raised eyebrows. Jennifer appeared at their side almost immediately, her expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Vale, Miss Brooks, glad you could both make it." "Jennifer, I think we can drop the formality," Ethan said easily. "Lena and I are here together, as a couple." Jennifer's professionalism cracked for just a moment, a genuine smile breaking through. "I was wondering how long you two were going to keep pretending. Congratulations." "People knew?" Lena asked, surprised. "Some of us had our suspicions. The way you looked at each other during speech prep wasn't exactly subtle." Jennifer glanced around the room. "Fair warning, you're going to get questions. I'd prepare a brief, consistent answer about how your relationship started after the scholarship was awarded and doesn't affect Ms. Brooks's standing in the program." "We can do that," Ethan said. And they did. Throughout the evening, they fielded questions with grace and honesty. Yes, they were dating. No, it hadn't influenced the scholarship decision. Yes, they understood the need to maintain professional boundaries within the foundation. Most people were supportive, or at least politely neutral. A few seemed skeptical, but no one was outright hostile. By the end of the night, Lena was exhausted but relieved. The secret was out, and the world hadn't ended. As they left the hotel, Ethan pulled her close. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Lighter, like I can finally breathe properly." "Good, because I have something I want to ask you, and I want to do it without any more secrets between us." Her heart skipped. "What?" "Come to my house for Thanksgiving, you and Tyler. Meet Emma properly, in our space. Let's do this right. No more half measures, no more hiding. Let's be a real couple figuring out how to blend our families." It was a huge step, bigger than going public at a fundraiser. This was bringing their children into their home lives, acknowledging that this was serious. "Okay," Lena heard herself say. "Yes, we'll come." Ethan's smile could have lit the entire city. Thanksgiving was still 2 weeks away, which gave Lena plenty of time to panic about what she'd agreed to. Meeting Ethan's daughter was one thing. Having Thanksgiving dinner in his home, which was probably a mansion, was something else entirely. "Stop spiraling," Maria ordered when Lena called her in a state of anxiety. "You've met Emma. She likes you. This is just dinner with people who care about you. In a house that probably has more bathrooms than my entire apartment building. So what? Ethan knows where you come from. If he wanted someone from his world, he'd have stayed in his world. He wants you." She was right, of course, but knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different things. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Lena and Tyler drove to Ethan's address. The GPS led them to a tree-lined street in the nicest part of town. And sure enough, Ethan's house was magnificent, a sprawling 2-story home with perfect landscaping and a circular driveway. "Whoa," Tyler breathed. "This is where Emma lives?" Apparently. Before Lena could spiral further, the front door opened and Emma came running out, followed by Ethan. "Tyler, you're here!" Emma grabbed Tyler's hand. "Come on, I want to show you my room. I have a fish tank with real saltwater fish." The kids disappeared inside, leaving Lena and Ethan standing by her car. "Your house is beautiful," Lena said, feeling inadequate. "It's too big for 2 people," Ethan said honestly. "I keep thinking about downsizing, but Emma loves the yard." He took her hand. "Come inside. Mrs. Chen is making enough food to feed an army, and she's excited to meet you." Mrs. Chen turned out to be a warm Filipino woman in her 50s who immediately enveloped Lena in a hug. "Finally, Mr. Ethan has been talking about you non-stop," she said, ignoring Ethan's embarrassed protests. "And that son of yours is adorable, already making friends with Emma." The afternoon passed in a blur of cooking, conversation, and the sounds of children playing. Mrs. Chen enlisted everyone's help with Thanksgiving prep, and Lena found herself peeling potatoes alongside Ethan while the kids set the table. It felt domestic, normal, like this was how things were supposed to be. Dinner itself was chaotic and perfect. Emma and Tyler argued good-naturedly about whether dolphins or dogs were better. Mrs. Chen told stories about Emma as a toddler that made everyone laugh. Ethan carved the turkey with exaggerated ceremony that had the kids giggling. And Lena, sitting at this table in this beautiful house with these people who were becoming so important to her, felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt like she was home. After dinner, while Mrs. Chen supervised the kids' cleanup efforts in the kitchen, Ethan led Lena out to the back porch. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly, "for taking a chance on this. Thank you for asking us, for," she gestured helplessly, "for all of it. Lena, I need to tell you something." Her heart clenched. Those words never led anywhere good. "What?" "I'm falling in love with you." Oh. "I know it's fast," Ethan continued. "I know we're still figuring things out. But watching you tonight with Emma and Mrs. Chen and Tyler, I just keep thinking this is what I want. This is what's been missing. Not just another person, but you specifically. Your laughter, your strength, the way you see the world. All of it." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I'm falling in love with you too. And it terrifies me because I've been burned before and I have Tyler to think about, and I know, I'm terrified too. But Lena, I think the things worth having are usually the things that scare us most." She kissed him then, there on the porch under the November stars, and let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to make it. Inside, they could hear Emma and Tyler laughing about something, their voices blending together in a harmony that sounded suspiciously like family. And for the first time since this whole impossible journey began, Lena allowed herself to hope for more than just survival. She allowed herself to hope for happiness. December arrived with unexpected warmth, both in weather and in the careful restructuring of their lives. Lena found herself navigating a new reality where happiness felt less like a luxury and more like something she was allowed to claim. But happiness, she was learning, came with its own complications. The morning after Thanksgiving, Ethan called her at 7 a.m., his voice tight with tension. "We need to talk. Can I come over?" Lena's stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" I need to see you. Is Tyler awake?" "He's still sleeping. Ethan, you're scaring me." "I'll be there in 20 minutes." He arrived in 19, looking like he hadn't slept. Lena met him at the door, pulling him inside before any neighbors could see. "What happened?" Ethan ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as his tell when he was deeply stressed. "The board knows about us, about our relationship. And they're not happy." "How did they find out?" "We were careful at the fundraiser. Someone posted a photo on social media. One of the younger donors, apparently. It's already making rounds in certain circles." He pulled out his phone, showing her the image. It was from the Thanksgiving fundraiser. Ethan's hand on the small of her back, both of them laughing at something, looking completely comfortable together. The caption read, "Vail Foundation founder Ethan Vail with scholarship recipient Lena Brooks. Sweet or suspicious? #conflict of interest." "Oh no," Lena breathed. "I have an emergency board meeting at 10. They want to discuss the optics of our relationship and whether it compromises the foundation's integrity." His jaw clenched. "I'm going to fight for us, Lena. But I need you to know this might get ugly." "What does that mean for my scholarship?" "Nothing. That's non-negotiable. You earned it, and it stays yours regardless of what happens with us." He cupped her face gently. "But they might ask us to end the relationship, or they might ask me to step down from day-to-day foundation operations. I don't know yet." Lena's mind raced. "Would you do that? Step down?" "I'd do whatever it takes to protect both the foundation and you, but I won't let them bully us into ending something real just because it makes them uncomfortable." After he left, Lena sat at her kitchen table, staring at that photo on her phone. They looked happy. They looked right together. But apparently, that wasn't enough. Maria came over within an hour of receiving Lena's panicked text, finding her friend still sitting in the same spot. "This is my fault," Lena said dully. "I pushed to go public. I said we should stop hiding." "This is not your fault. You two have a right to date without permission from a board of rich people who probably have their own messy relationships they're hiding. But the scholarship program, what if this damages it? What if donors pull funding because they think it's corrupt? Then those donors are idiots who never really cared about helping families in the first place." Maria sat down across from her. "Lena, listen to me. You did nothing wrong. You met someone. You fell for him, and you were honest about it. That's not a scandal. That's just life. Tell that to the board. The morning crept by with agonizing slowness. Tyler woke up around 9, oblivious to the crisis unfolding, chattering about whether they could invite Emma over to play video games. Lena made him breakfast and tried to act normal, but her phone felt like a bomb in her pocket. At 11:47, Ethan finally called. "How bad is it?" Lena asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "Mixed. 3 board members wanted me to choose between you and the foundation. 2 were supportive. 4 were on the fence." He sounded exhausted. "We reached a compromise." "Which is?" "I'm stepping back from direct oversight of scholarship awards and recipient relations. Jennifer will handle all of that, with a new committee reviewing decisions to ensure impartiality. I'll remain as founder and primary fundraiser, but I won't have any say in who receives scholarships or how much." "That's not fair. It's your foundation. It's the foundation's work that matters, not my ego." "And Lena, this actually solves the problem we've been dancing around. Now, there's absolutely no way anyone can claim your scholarship was influenced by our relationship. The optics are clean." She heard what he wasn't saying. "But you're being punished for falling in love. I'm being asked to maintain appropriate boundaries, which honestly, I should have insisted on from the beginning. This is the right call." He paused. "There's one more thing. They want us to consider couples counseling." "What?" "Dr. Patricia Winters. She specializes in high-profile relationships and blended families. The board suggested it would demonstrate our commitment to doing this right, to making sure we're not rushing into something that could hurt the foundation or our kids." Lena bristled. "They want us to prove we're serious by going to therapy? They want us to have support. And honestly, Lena, it might not be a terrible idea. We are blending 2 families while navigating a complicated professional relationship. Having someone objective to talk through that with could help." He was right, but it still felt like the board was imposing conditions on their relationship, requiring them to jump through hoops to earn the right to be together. "Fine," she said. "We'll do the counseling. But Ethan, I'm tired of other people deciding what's best for us." "I know, I am too. But this is the price of keeping both you and the foundation protected. I'm willing to pay it if you are." What choice did she have? Walking away from Ethan would be easier in some ways. It would eliminate all these complications. But the thought of losing him, of losing what they were building, made her chest ache. "I'm willing," she said quietly. They started counseling the following week. Dr. Winters was a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s who didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Let's establish some ground rules," she said at their first session. "First, what you say here stays here unless it involves safety concerns. Second, I'm not here to tell you whether your relationship is good or bad. I'm here to help you navigate it thoughtfully. Third, I will call out patterns I notice, and you might not always like what I have to say. Agreed?" They both nodded. "Good. Now tell me how you met." They took turns recounting the story. The bakery, the canceled cake, the birthday party, the scholarship. Dr. Winters listened without interrupting, her expression neutral. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "That's quite a power imbalance to build a relationship on," she said finally. Lena stiffened. "I'm not with him because of his money." "I didn't say you were. But Ethan, you quite literally hold Lena's future in your hands through this scholarship. Even with the new board oversight, your foundation is funding her education, her childcare, her ability to build a better life. Do you see how that could complicate things?" "Of course I see it," Ethan said. "That's why we've been so careful." "Careful how? By hiding the relationship for months? By only going public when forced to?" Dr. Winters leaned forward. "I'm not criticizing your choices. I'm asking you to examine them. Because from where I sit, this relationship started with Ethan in a position of immense power and Lena in a position of vulnerability. And that's a dangerous foundation to build on, no matter how genuine your feelings are." The session was uncomfortable and enlightening. Dr. Winters made them articulate their fears, their expectations, their concerns about the children. She pushed them to consider scenarios they'd been avoiding. What if the relationship ended? What would that mean for the scholarship, for Tyler and Emma, for their ability to coexist professionally? By the end of the hour, Lena felt wrung out. "Same time next week," Dr. Winters said as they left. "And between now and then, I want you both to think about this question. Are you together because you genuinely complement each other, or because you each see in the other person something you think you need to be whole?" In the car afterward, they sat in silence. That was intense, Ethan said finally. She's right, though, about the power imbalance. Lena stared out the window. I've been telling myself it doesn't matter because I know my own motivations, but she's right. You changed my entire life before we ever went on a date. How do we build something equal on that foundation? By acknowledging it, by being honest about it, by making sure we're making decisions together going forward, not me making them for you. He reached for her hand. Lena, I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything. If you're with me, I need it to be because you want to be, not because you feel obligated. I am with you because I want to be, but I'd be lying if I said the scholarship doesn't complicate things in my head sometimes. Then we keep working on it, with Dr. Winters in our conversations and how we structure our relationship. He squeezed her hand. I'm not giving up on us. Neither am I. Christmas approached with alarming speed. Lena finished her fall semester with a 3.9 GPA, her highest ever. The foundation's scholarship check cleared for spring semester, guaranteeing another few months of financial stability. Tyler's teacher sent home a glowing progress report. Things were going well. Too well, Lena's anxious brain insisted. Something had to go wrong. And then something did. 2 days before Christmas, Lena received a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Lena Brooks? A man's voice, vaguely familiar. Yes. Who is this? It's Marcus. Marcus Brooks, Tyler's father. The world tilted. Lena sat down hard on her couch, her vision swimming. What do you want? Her voice came out cold, harder than she'd intended. I want to see my son. I have rights, Lena. You gave up those rights when you walked out 7 years ago. You don't get to just show up now and I made mistakes. I'm trying to make amends. I'm sober now, got a steady job. I want Tyler to know his father. No. I can go through the courts if I have to. I've been talking to a lawyer, but I'd rather work this out between us. Lena's hands shook. You don't get to threaten me with lawyers. You abandoned us. You don't pay child support. You have no legal claim to Tyler. Actually, in this state, I might. Biological fathers have rights even without a custody agreement. My lawyer says we have a good case for visitation at minimum. The call ended shortly after, with Marcus saying he'd be in touch. Lena sat frozen on her couch, panic rising in her throat. Tyler's father, back. After all these years of silence. She called Ethan immediately. He arrived within the hour, finding her pacing her living room while Tyler watched cartoons, blissfully unaware of the crisis. Tell me everything, Ethan said. She did, her voice shaking. When she finished, Ethan's expression was grim. He might be bluffing about the lawyer, trying to scare you into compliance. But what if he's not? What if he can actually get visitation rights? Ethan, Tyler doesn't even know who he is. I've never shown him pictures, never told him his father's name. How do I explain this to a 7-year-old? We get you a lawyer first, a good one. Then we figure out the best approach for Tyler. He pulled out his phone. I know someone. Catherine Chen, family law specialist. Best in the state. I'll call her right now. Ethan, I can't afford... I'm not asking you to. This is important, Lena. Let me help. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself. But the truth was, she couldn't. Not without help. Not without resources she didn't have. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Catherine Chen agreed to an emergency consultation the next morning. She listened to Lena's story with a sharp analytical expression, taking notes. Here's the reality, she said when Lena finished. Biological fathers do have rights in this state, but they're not unlimited. The fact that he's been absent for 7 years works strongly in your favor. The fact that he paid no child support, made no attempts at contact, demonstrated no interest in Tyler's welfare. All of that matters. So he can't just show up and demand visitation. He can try. He'd need to petition the court for a custody hearing. The judge would consider Tyler's best interests, which include stability and the child's existing relationships. After 7 years of absence, most judges wouldn't grant immediate unsupervised visitation. Catherine leaned forward. But Lena, you need to be prepared for the possibility that he might get something. Supervised visits to start, possibly escalating to more if he proves he's changed. The thought made Lena feel sick. What do I do? First, we file a response if he formally petitions. Second, we document everything: his abandonment, the financial burden you've carried alone, Tyler's current stable environment. Third, we prepare Tyler, gently, for the possibility that his biological father wants to meet him. How do I do that without traumatizing him? Catherine's expression softened slightly. You tell him the truth in age-appropriate terms, that his father made mistakes and left, but now he says he wants to be part of Tyler's life. You emphasize that Tyler's feelings matter, that he doesn't have to do anything he's uncomfortable with, and that you'll be there with him every step of the way. Lena left the consultation feeling marginally better but still terrified. That night after Tyler went to bed, she sat with Ethan in her darkened living room and let herself cry. I've worked so hard to give him stability, she said, to make sure he felt safe and loved even without a father. And now Marcus is going to come in and disrupt everything. Maybe. Or maybe the court will see through his act and deny him. Either way, Tyler has you. He has a home, a routine, people who love him. Ethan pulled her closer. And he has me, if you'll let me be part of his support system through this. You do that? Help me through a custody battle with my ex? Lena, I love you. That means I love Tyler too. I'm not going anywhere. The words settled over her like a blanket. I love you. He'd said it before, on Thanksgiving, but hearing it now in the midst of crisis made it feel more real somehow. I love you too, she whispered. I don't say it enough, but I do. They sat together in the quiet, and gradually Lena's panic subsided. This was terrifying, but she wasn't facing it alone. Christmas morning arrived with Tyler's excited squeals as he discovered the presents under their small tree. Lena had invited Ethan and Emma to join them, and they arrived at 8 with armfuls of additional gifts and Mrs. Chen carrying a breakfast casserole. For a few hours, Lena let herself forget about Marcus and custody battles and legal threats. She watched Tyler and Emma tear into presents, laughing at each other's reactions. She opened the gift Ethan had gotten her, a delicate locket with space for 2 photos, and felt tears prick her eyes. For Tyler and Emma, he explained quietly, so you can carry them both with you. The assumption that Emma was already part of her heart, that their families were blending into something permanent, it was overwhelming in the best way. Later, after breakfast, while the kids played with their new toys and Mrs. Chen cleaned up despite everyone's protests, Ethan pulled Lena aside. I've been thinking about something, he said, and I want to run it by you before I do anything. Okay? The foundation is expanding our programs nationally, like I mentioned months ago. We're opening regional offices, hiring more staff, scaling up to help thousands of families instead of hundreds. He paused. I want to create a position for you, Director of Recipient Relations and Program Development. You'd help design our programs based on your experience, serve as a liaison to scholarship recipients, maybe even do some public speaking about your journey. Lena stared at him. Ethan, I haven't even finished my nursing degree. This wouldn't start until after you graduate, and it would be in addition to, not instead of, your nursing career. Think of it as consulting work, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week, flexible schedule. But Lena, your perspective is invaluable. You understand what our recipients need because you've lived it. This feels like charity again. It's not. It's a real job with real responsibilities and a real salary. I'm offering it because you're qualified, not because we're dating. He smiled slightly. Though full disclosure, Jennifer will be the one who officially hires you and oversees your work. I'm staying out of the direct reporting structure to avoid any conflicts of interest. You've really thought this through. I have, but only if you want it. No pressure. Lena thought about it. A chance to help other families like hers, to take her painful experiences and transform them into something meaningful, to work alongside Ethan in a professional capacity that was clearly defined and ethically sound. I want to think about it, she said. Can I give you an answer after the holidays? Take all the time you need. New Year's came and went with no word from Marcus. Catherine advised Lena to wait. If he was serious about pursuing custody, he'd file formal paperwork. Until then, there was nothing to do but continue living their lives. January brought a new semester and new challenges. Lena dove into her nursing coursework, which was significantly harder than the previous semester. Ethan traveled more for work, but they talked every day, and he made it back for weekends. And slowly, the 4 of them, Lena, Tyler, Ethan, and Emma began to function more like a family unit. They established routines: Friday night dinners at Ethan's house, Saturday morning pancakes at Lena's apartment, Sunday afternoon activities as a foursome, museums, parks, movies, whatever the kids wanted. Tyler started calling Ethan by his first name instead of Mr. Ethan, a small shift that felt monumental. Emma asked Lena for help with a school project about family trees, casually including both Lena and Tyler on her poster. In Dr. Winter's office, they discussed these developments. "It sounds like things are progressing naturally," the therapist observed. "How are you both feeling about the pace?" "Good, mostly," Lena said. "Sometimes I worry we're moving too fast, but then I remember we've been doing this for almost 5 months now. That's not that fast." "What about you, Ethan?" "I feel like we're where we're supposed to be, but I'm also conscious that we haven't had any major tests yet. No big conflicts between the kids, no serious disagreements between Lena and me about parenting approaches." "Those will come," Dr. Winters said matter-of-factly. "And when they do, how you handle them will determine whether this family structure is sustainable." The test came sooner than expected. In mid-January, Tyler got into a fight at school. The call came while Lena was in class, so the school contacted her emergency backup, Maria, who then called Ethan because she was stuck at work. Ethan picked up Tyler from school, brought him back to his house, and sat him down for a conversation about fighting. By the time Lena arrived, frantic with worry, Tyler had already been through a lengthy discussion about using words instead of fists, and was now sitting at the kitchen table writing an apology letter to the boy he'd hit. "What happened?" Lena demanded, pulling Tyler into a hug. "The kid said my family was weird because I don't have a dad," Tyler mumbled into her shoulder. "So I pushed him, and then he pushed me back, and then I hit him." Lena's heart broke and swelled simultaneously. She looked at Ethan over Tyler's head. "I didn't know if I overstepped," Ethan said quietly. "Talking to him about it? But he seemed like he needed to process what happened, and you were in class. You didn't overstep. Thank you for being there." She meant it. This was what partnership looked like, sharing the hard moments, not just the good ones. Later, after Tyler had apologized and been sent to play with Emma, Lena and Ethan talked in the kitchen. "He said the kid called his family weird," Ethan said. "And I realized we've never actually talked to Tyler about what we are. Whether he should refer to me as your boyfriend or a family friend or what. I don't know what the right answer is. Maybe we ask him, see how he thinks about us." They did that evening, sitting Tyler down for what Lena had started thinking of as a family meeting. "Tyler, honey, we need to talk about something important," she started. "You got in a fight today because a kid said something about our family. Can you tell us what he said?" Tyler squirmed. "He said it was weird that I have a mom and a half-sister but no dad, and that Emma isn't really my sister because we don't have the same parents. What do you think about that?" Ethan asked gently. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. "I think Emma is my sister even if we're not related. And I think you're kind of like a dad, even though you're not really my dad. But I didn't know how to explain that to him." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Ethan reached for her hand. "Tyler," Ethan said, his voice a bit rough. "I'm not your biological father, and I would never try to replace him or take his place. But if you want to think of me as a dad figure, as someone who cares about you and wants to be part of your life, I would be honored by that." "Really? Really, you're an amazing kid and I love spending time with you. And Emma thinks you're pretty cool too." Tyler smiled, the tension draining from his small shoulders. "Can I call you Dad sometimes? Or is that weird?" Ethan glanced at Lena, who nodded through her tears. "You can call me whatever feels right to you," Ethan said. "Dad, Ethan, Dad." "Ethan, I don't mind. What matters is that you know I'm here for you." Tyler thought about it. "I think maybe Ethan is better for now, but maybe Dad sometimes. Is that okay?" "That's more than okay." After Tyler went to bed, Lena collapsed into Ethan's arms on the couch. "That was huge," she whispered. "Are you okay with it? With him potentially calling me Dad?" "Yeah, I am. Because you've earned it, Ethan. You show up for him. You care about him. You're exactly the kind of father figure he deserves. What about his biological father? If Marcus shows up, then we'll deal with it. But Marcus has to earn the title of dad, same as anyone else. It's not automatic just because of genetics." 3 weeks later, the feared court documents arrived. Marcus had filed for visitation rights. Catherine sprang into action, filing a response and requesting that any visitation be supervised given Marcus's long absence. The court date was set for early March. The waiting was excruciating. Lena threw herself into schoolwork, trying not to obsess over every possible outcome. Ethan was a steady presence, never pushing but always available when she needed to talk. Dr. Winters helped them prepare for different scenarios. What if Marcus got unsupervised visitation? What if Tyler wanted to get to know his father? What if he didn't? Tyler's old enough to have his voice heard in this process, Dr. Winters said. Not in making the final decision, but in expressing his feelings. Have you talked to him about it? They had, carefully. Tyler's response had been confused more than anything. I already have a family, he'd said. Why does this guy suddenly want to be part of it now? Good question, Lena had thought. The court date arrived on a gray Tuesday in March. Lena dressed carefully, trying to look responsible and stable, a good mother who'd raised her son well despite being abandoned. Marcus arrived with his lawyer, looking healthier than Lena remembered, but also nervous. The judge listened to both sides. Catherine presented documentation of Marcus's 7-year absence, his failure to pay child support, and Tyler's stable current environment. Marcus's lawyer argued that he'd made mistakes but was now sober and employed and genuinely wanted to be part of his son's life. After nearly 2 hours, the judge made her ruling. Mr. Brooks, your abandonment of your son for 7 years is troubling. However, I'm willing to give you an opportunity to demonstrate your commitment. You'll be granted supervised visitation, 2 hours every other Saturday, supervised by a court-appointed monitor. After 6 months, we'll reconvene to discuss whether the arrangement should continue or expand. It wasn't the worst outcome, but it wasn't the best either. Outside the courtroom, Marcus approached Lena carefully. I know you have no reason to trust me, he said, but I'm serious about this. I want to know my son. Then prove it. Show up for those visits. Be consistent. Actually be there, not just legally, but emotionally. Lena's voice was hard. Because if you hurt him, if you disappoint him the way you disappointed me, I will fight you with everything I have. I understand. I hope you do. The first supervised visit happened 2 weeks later. Lena stayed in the waiting room of the visitation center, her stomach in knots, while Tyler met his father for the first time in his conscious memory. Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand. He's going to be okay, he murmured. Whatever happens in there, Tyler has a whole support system waiting for him out here. When Tyler emerged an hour and 45 minutes later, he'd apparently asked to leave early. He looked confused, but not traumatized. How was it? Lena asked carefully as they walked to the car. Weird. He looks kind of like me, but older. He asked a lot of questions about school and baseball. Tyler was quiet for a moment. He said he was sorry for leaving, that he made mistakes and wants to do better. How did that make you feel? I don't know, weird. Another pause. He's not Ethan, though. He doesn't know me like Ethan knows me. Lena pulled her son into a tight hug. You don't have to figure out your feelings right now. It's okay to be confused. Okay. The supervised visits continued through the spring. Marcus was consistent, showing up every other Saturday without fail. Tyler gradually warmed to him, though he maintained an emotional distance that made it clear Marcus had a long way to go to earn real trust. And through it all, Ethan remained steady, not trying to compete with Marcus, not pressuring Tyler, just being present and supportive. In April, Lena made a decision. She accepted Ethan's job offer, agreeing to join the foundation after graduation as Director of Recipient Relations. The announcement was made internally first, then publicly, with full transparency about her relationship with Ethan and the safeguards in place to prevent conflicts of interest. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Other scholarship recipients reached out to say how excited they were to have someone who understood their experiences in a leadership role. Donors expressed appreciation for the Foundation's commitment to ethical practices. May brought final exams and the end of Lena's second semester. She finished with a 3.85 GPA, exhausted but triumphant. And then, on a warm Saturday evening in mid-May, Ethan asked her to dinner. Just us, he said. Mrs. Chen is watching both kids. I made reservations at Marcello's. Marcello's was the nicest restaurant in town, the kind of place Lena had never been because she couldn't afford it. What's the occasion? She asked. Do I need an occasion to take my girlfriend to dinner? There was something in his voice, a nervous edge that made her suspicious. But she let it go, spending the afternoon getting ready while Maria came over to help her choose an outfit. He's going to propose, Maria said confidently as she zipped up Lena's dress, a new one she'd bought for the occasion. Don't be ridiculous. We've only been dating for 7 months. 7 months, plus all the time before you started officially dating. And you're basically living together already, between his house and yours. We are not basically living together. You have a drawer at his house. He has a toothbrush at your apartment. Your kids call each other siblings. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's too soon, Lena insisted, even as her heart raced at the possibility. But when dessert arrived at Marcello's and Ethan reached across the table for her hand, her suspicions crystallized into certainty. Lena, he began, and there it was, that nervous edge again. These past 7 months have been the happiest of my life since Miranda died. You've brought joy and laughter and meaning back into my world. You've shown Emma what it looks like to be strong and resilient. You've let me be part of Tyler's life in a way I never expected, but am so grateful for. Ethan, please, let me get through this before I lose my nerve. He smiled slightly. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring out the blended family thing and navigating complicated professional relationships, but I also know with absolute certainty that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Lena's breath caught. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. We can have a long engagement. Wait until you graduate. Wait until the kids are more settled. Whatever timeline feels right to you. But Lena Brooks, I am asking you to marry me, to build a life together, to blend our families officially, to be partners in every sense of the word. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring, a single diamond on a platinum band, classic and beautiful without being ostentatious. Will you marry me? Lena looked at this man who had appeared in her life when she'd needed him most, who had seen her at her lowest and chosen to lift her up, who loved her son as fiercely as she did, who made her believe in second chances and happy endings. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The restaurant broke into applause. Ethan had apparently told the staff what he was planning. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her, like all of this had been made for her. They told the kids the next morning, gathering all 4 of them in Ethan's living room. We have some news, Ethan started. Lena and I are getting married. Emma's face lit up. Really? So Lena's going to be my stepmom? If that's okay with you, Lena said. It's totally okay, Tyler. We're going to be real siblings. Tyler looked more thoughtful. Does this mean we're all going to live together? It was a fair question, and one Lena and Ethan had discussed extensively the night before. Eventually, yes, Ethan said, but we're not rushing into it. We thought maybe after your mom graduates from nursing school, we'd look for a house together, somewhere new for all of us, so nobody feels like they're moving into someone else's space. A new house? Tyler's eyes widened. With a big yard? We can look for one with a big yard, Lena confirmed. But Tyler, I need you to be honest with me. How do you feel about all of this? About Ethan becoming your stepdad officially? Tyler thought about it, his face serious. I think it's good. I like Ethan, and I like Emma, and I like that you're happy, Mama. You smile a lot more now than you used to. Lena pulled him into a hug, overwhelmed with love for this wise, resilient little boy. The next few months were a blur of wedding planning, house hunting, and finishing her nursing program. Lena graduated in August with honors, passing her nursing board exams on the first try. She started working at Riverside Medical Center 3 days a week and began her consulting work with the foundation the other 2 days. They found a house in September, a beautiful 4-bedroom with a large backyard, perfect for both kids. It was in a good school district, close to Tyler's elementary school and Emma's middle school, with enough space for everyone to have their own room, plus a shared playroom. The wedding was scheduled for December, exactly 1 year after Ethan's proposal. They kept it small and intimate, just close friends, family, and a few foundation board members. The ceremony took place at the same park where they'd had their first real conversation about being together, the same park where Tyler and Emma had played that Sunday afternoon. Caroline from Sweet Haven Bakery made the wedding cake, a simple but elegant 3-tier design. Maria was Lena's maid of honor, tearfully toasting to her best friend finally getting the happiness she deserved. Jennifer gave a speech about watching Ethan come back to life over the past year and a half. But the most memorable moment came during the vows. Lena and Ethan had written their own, but they'd also asked Tyler and Emma to participate. After exchanging their own promises, they turned to the children. "Tyler," Ethan said, kneeling down to the boy's level, "I promise to be the best stepdad I can be. To show up for your games and your school events. To help you with homework and listen when you need to talk. To love you and support you, always." Tyler hugged him fiercely. "I love you, Dad," he whispered, the first time he'd used the word without qualifiers. Lena turned to Emma. "Emma, I promise to be a stepmom who listens and supports your dreams, whether they involve dolphins or something completely different tomorrow. I promise to be fair and kind and present, and I promise to love you as fiercely as I love Tyler." Emma threw her arms around Lena's neck. "I'm so glad Daddy found you." There wasn't a dry eye in the small gathering. The reception was held at Ethan's house, soon to be their old house, as they'd be moving into the new one in January. Dancing, laughter, and joy filled the evening. As Lena danced with her new husband under the stars in his backyard, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a canceled birthday cake, with a moment of desperation and defeat in a small-town bakery, with a stranger who had witnessed her pain and chosen to do something about it. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a scholarship that changed her life trajectory, a friendship that deepened into love, a blended family that shouldn't have worked on paper but somehow did in practice, a partnership built on mutual respect, honest communication, and the shared understanding that came from both having walked the difficult path of single parenthood. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan murmured, pulling her closer. "How none of this should have happened. How statistically improbable it is that you walked into that bakery at exactly the right moment, that you chose to help, that we fell in love despite all the complications. And I'm so grateful it did, all of it." She looked up at him. "You saved me, you know. Not just financially, but in every way that matters." "No," Ethan said softly. "You saved yourself. You were already fighting for a better life before I showed up. I just gave you some tools to work with. Everything you've accomplished, the scholarship, the degree, the job, being an incredible mother, that's all you. We saved each other then. How about that?" He smiled. "I can live with that." As they swayed to the music, Lena saw Tyler and Emma spinning each other around on the makeshift dance floor, laughing with the unselfconscious joy of children who felt safe and loved. She saw Maria dancing with her boyfriend, finally ready to take the next step in her own relationship. She saw Mrs. Chen wiping away happy tears as she watched the family she'd helped raise come together with a new one. She saw the life they'd built, imperfect and complicated and absolutely perfect. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan. "For what?" "For seeing me that day in the bakery, for choosing to help instead of walking away, for taking a chance on us. Thank you for letting me, for trusting me even when you had every reason not to, for opening your life to me and Tyler, and for loving Emma like your own." "Always," Lena promised. "Always." The music played on, and they danced, surrounded by the people they loved most in the world, and somewhere in the new house waiting for them, in the life they were about to start together, in the future stretching out before them full of possibility and promise, Lena knew she'd finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not rescue, not charity, not someone to fix her problems or save her from her circumstances, but partnership, belonging, a place where she and Tyler fit perfectly, where they were valued and loved and seen for exactly who they were. She'd found home. And standing there in Ethan's arms, with their children laughing nearby and their whole lives ahead of them, Lena finally let herself believe in happy endings. Because this wasn't a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real.